Chapter 660. It was a shuddering aura that emanated from the center of the ancient city, spreading through every single corner and enveloping every single cultivator. On the south city wall, many cultivators were about to rush forward to kill Ling Hu and Monkey when they suddenly paused in their tracks. On the east city wall, the young girl transformed from Little Fox panted slightly. The golden lion's massive body fell onto the wall, coughing out mouthfuls of blood with a dispirited expression. Although it was a pure-blooded ferocious beast, it could not defend against the combined attacks of dozens of Glass Palace cultivators, and was severely injured the moment they exchanged blows. However, the dozens of cultivators did not continue their pursuit either. Every cultivator in the ancient city felt a chill running down their spines. They subconsciously turned around and glanced in the direction of the voice. No one knew what would happen if 2 demon-revealing mirrors were knocked over. Every single cultivator wanted to know if the omnidirectional demon suppression formation with only 2 demon-revealing mirrors could still suppress that monster incarnate on the spot. Even the heart of the sealer Elder Shio skipped a beat in midair. At that moment, time seemed to have frozen. 1 breath. 2 breaths. Su Zimo was still motionless on the spot. Although 2 demon-revealing mirrors were missing, the runes of the omnidirectional demon suppression formation were still present and were suppressing Su Zimo's head tightly. Elder Shio was the first to react as he hollered, "Everyone, don't panic. The runes of the formation are still here, and that beast won't be able to break free. Everyone else, go guard the demon-revealing mirrors on the west and north city walls. Nothing must happen to those 2 demon-revealing mirrors." As he said that, Elder Shio sped towards the west city wall in a flash. Fufufu. Within the formation in the center of the ancient city, Su Zimo suddenly let out a chilling laughter. Elder Shio was right. Su Zimo could not break free even after knocking over 2 demon-revealing mirrors. However, the power of the omnidirectional demon suppression formation would naturally decrease with the disappearance of 2 light pillars. That was the simplest logic. Now that the power of the formation was weakened, another power within Su Zimo's body had already broken through the seal. Su Zimo turned around and glared at Elder Shio's back view coldly. In midair, Elder Shio suddenly frowned. He could vaguely feel that someone was staring at him from behind, as if there was a thorn in his back. Immediately after, a feeling of impending doom emerged from the bottom of his heart. This feeling made him very uncomfortable. Elder Shio turned around. In the next moment, his eyes opened wide and they were filled with shock. It was as if he'd seen an extremely terrifying and shocking scene. At the center of the ancient city, a ball of white light was dancing in Su Zimo's right eye. It was getting brighter and brighter. A technique? Elder Shio was so shocked that he couldn't react. Su Zimo's right eye emitted a dazzling light. It was like a scorching sun, illuminating the entire world as if it was daytime. Illuminating eye. After the 2 demon-revealing mirrors were overturned, the first power to break free was the illumination eye. The illumination eye was cultivated by observing the scorching sun. In reality, it had already broken free from the power of the inner core and was at the level of heaven and earth powers. In other words, the power of the illumination eye was a type of dermic power. Boom! An incomparably blinding beam of light shot out and tore through the void, almost crossing half of the ancient city before piercing Elder Shio's abdomen. It was as though the world had stopped. Instantly, the darkness in the ancient city was purged by the beam of light. Elder Shio's body was almost snapped at the waist as a gigantic circular wound appeared on his abdomen. There wasn't even a single drop of blood around the wound. It was completely charred by the power of the illumination eye. It was a frightening sight. Although the beam of light did not hit Elder Shio's vitals, however, at that moment Elder Shio's body was already devoid of life. The illumination eye had already incinerated all the life in his organs. In reality, his body was already a corpse. The only reason why he did not die immediately was because his essence spirit was still around. Unfortunately, his lifespan was almost up to begin with and his essence spirit was already extremely weak. Even if he could leave his body and escape, he would not be able to live for more than 3 breaths. The killing intent and blood chi in the ancient city alone was enough to destroy his frail essence spirit. Elder Shio's eyes dimmed and he was completely disheartened. His death was a foregone conclusion and he had no regrets. What he was truly worried about was that the omnidirectional demon suppression formation might not be able to suppress this monster incarnate. The true target of the visual technique was not him, but the demon-revealing mirror on the western city wall behind him. The beam of light penetrated his body and descended on the western city wall. Among the cultivators guarding the demon-revealing mirror, 4 or 5 of them were pierced by the beam of light. The left half of one of the cultivator's body was destroyed. Another cultivator's head was sliced in half. Boom! Eventually, the beam of light from the illumination eye struck the demon-revealing mirror and knocked it to the ground. Yet another beam of light from the demon-revealing mirror disappeared from Su Zimo's body. Night descended once more. Everyone's hearts were shrouded in a heavy haze as well. Although the omnidirectional demon suppression formation was still around, the surrounding runes were much dimmer. Glass Palace cultivators, listen up. Leave this place as soon as possible and escape as far as you can. Elder Xiao used the last of his strength to let out a roar. Immediately after, his glabella shone and a black mountain peak the size of a thumb appeared in midair. Immediately after, dermic powers rippled. The black mountain peak expanded rapidly against the wind and shrouded Su Zimo's head, forming a huge shadow that crushed down. Elder Xiao knew that he was going to die, and this was the last thing he could do. It would be best if he could kill Su Zimo directly. If not, he would have to try his best to delay the latter and buy time for the remaining Glass Palace cultivators to escape. That would be a worthy death for him. Ever since he found out that Monkey and Linghu were attacking the city, Su Zimo's heart was filled with rage. Now that 3 demon-revealing mirrors had fallen from the city walls, the pressure on him was greatly reduced and he could not help but roar into the skies with a deafening murderous roar. With only a single demon-revealing mirror left, the omnidirectional demon suppression formation could no longer seal his inner core. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly. They were as black as ink and his black hair fluttered without any wind. His blood chi rumbled and the inner core in his chest churned wildly, emitting a scarlet demonic chi as his body expanded at a visible speed. Crack! Crackle! Pang! 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 Su Zimo's tendons and bones rang at the same time as his flesh expanded, right in front of everyone. His body that was merely 7 feet tall grew to a height of 100 feet instantly, resembling an indomitable ancient fiend god with a torrential ferocity. Many cultivators standing on the city walls were scared out of their wits. They watched as such a huge figure rose from the ground. It was even taller than the walls of the ancient city by an entire head. That scene was way too shocking. That figure was like a demon king, a heavenly god that could suppress and destroy everything. Chapter 661. His massive body was bulging with green veins popping out densely like spirit snakes crawling all over his body. His body shone with a metallic luster and was indestructible. Su Zimo's body was shrouded in a layer of shimmering runes as well. Although the 3 demon-revealing mirrors fell, in reality, the omnidirectional demon suppression formation was still around and was not completely dispelled. The light barrier formed by the formation was still binding Su Zimo's body tightly. However, the runes on the light barrier flickered, as though they could extinguish at any moment. With a menacing gaze, Su Zimo spread his arms and his body expanded once more. Crack! 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 The light barrier around him shattered instantly. The runes on it dimmed completely. With a boom, the omnidirectional demon suppression formation exploded. Su Zimo broke free and demonic chi gushed out from his body, forming a series of lifelike ancient demons with sharp fangs and claws around him. Wild ox, stone bear, anaconda, sanguine ape, divine steed, hell tiger, wind leopard. There were a total of 7 of them. Many cultivators in the ancient city were scared out of their wits. Prior to this, Su Zimo had reminded them twice that this was a feud between him and Glass Palace and had nothing to do with them. At that time, everyone thought that Su Zimo was a joke. It was only at this moment that everyone realized that choosing to leave back then might have been their only chance at survival. Boom! Rumble! A huge shadow shrouded over. The final black mountain released by Elder Xiao descended. Su Zimo did not dodge or retreat. Instead, he reached out with both arms and growled deeply. His massive palms supported the bottom of the mountain. Boom! After all, the mountain contained the dermic powers of a sealer, and was extremely heavy. The moment they made contact, Suzimo's body shrank and the green bricks beneath his feet exploded, causing his feet to sink deeply into the ground. However, his knees did not buckle and his spine was straight. Like a heavenly god, he supported the black mountain with his body. That was the last thing Elder Xiao saw in this world. Heis! Elder Xiao closed his eyes and sighed gently. He knew that the cultivators in the ancient city were most likely dead. As for the Glass Palace cultivators, there was a high chance that all of them would die here. Behind Elder Xiao, a crack appeared silently in the void. It was dark and sinister within, and a sinister wind blew. The crack swallowed Elder Xiao in one gulp before gradually closing. Run! Finally, some cultivators reacted and fled into the distance. Suzimo's gaze was ferocious. With a sinister smile, he threw the mountain in his hand at the fleeing crowd. Rumble! As the mountain descended, half of the western city wall was smashed to pieces. Suzimo could withstand this mountain, but the other cultivators could not. Even if they joined forces, they could not withstand the suppression of this mountain. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of cultivators were crushed into meat paste, leaving no corpse behind. Kill! Suzimo stared at the fleeing cultivators with bulging eyes. His entire being was filled with a bloody aura as he scanned his surroundings and let out a roar. Almost at the same time, the 7 ancient demon kings that surrounded Suzimo opened their mouths and roared into the skies in a deafening manner. Poof! 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 Many cultivators did not manage to escape far before they were torn apart by the roar and died on the spot. The number of demon beasts that swarmed into the city increased. Roar! Suzimo looked at them and let out a deep roar. The demon beasts understood him and chased after the cultivators of the other sects and factions. None of the demon beasts dared to defy Suzimo's orders. The demon race believed in the law of the jungle and had a strict hierarchy. Whoever had the biggest fist could be king. At this moment, anyone who dared to defy Suzimo would be courting death. Suzimo placed Monkey, Linghu, Little Fox and the Golden Lion together, and poured out all the elixirs in his storage bag. Monkey and Linghu were the most severely injured. However, Monkey had an extraordinary bloodline to begin with and his life force was gradually recovering at that moment. Linghu cultivated the Void Thunder Manual and was reborn as well, beginning to recover from his injuries. The Golden Lion's condition was still all right, and its life was not in danger. The 3 of them merely had to consume some elixirs to recover. As for Little Fox, she was merely frightened and was not injured. However, for some reason, Little Fox reverted to her true form and looked at Suzimo timidly, avoiding his gaze as though she was shy. After settling the 4 of them down, Suzimo did not chat and turned around right away. Striding forward, his massive body swayed as he chased after the Glass Palace cultivators. The other cultivators in the ancient city would be taken care of by the surviving beast stampede. Suzimo did not care even if some of them managed to escape. Glass Palace cultivators were the only ones who could not leave. Suzimo had mentioned before that Glass Palace had to pay with their blood for the tens of millions of innocent living beings in the 13 cities of Yen country. Furthermore, Monkey and Linghu were injured as such and Glass Palace had to be held accountable for that. It was truly way too difficult for them to escape from Suzimo's pursuit alive. Suzimo's body was massive and his explosive power was shocking. He could catch up in a couple of steps if he chased after them in huge strides. Furthermore, he had cultivated the power of heaven and earth hearing and his 5 senses were frighteningly sharp. Nobody could escape from his senses. Suzimo caught up to a small group of Glass Palace cultivators, and his massive palm descended from the skies. There was no technique at all. It was a complete suppression of strength. Brute force could take down everything. Boom! When the palm struck the ground, the ancient city shook and dust billowed everywhere. When Suzimo raised his palm, a gigantic palm print appeared on the ground. Dark red blood mixed with the mud and filled every corner of the palm print. The small group of Glass Palace cultivators were all dead. Someone brushed past Suzimo and was secretly relieved. Unexpectedly, the ancient demon kings that surrounded Suzimo suddenly burst forth. Wild Bullhorn, Stone Bear Close, Anaconda Coiling, Sanguine Ape Seal, Divine Steed Charge. Every single move was a killing move. Those cultivators could not defend against it at all. Suzimo shuttled through the ancient city and within 1,000 feet radius, Nothing was spared. All living beings were killed mercilessly, as though he was a mortal weapon. Even if Glass Palace cultivators released their Jindan phenomenons, it was useless. If Shi Wuya or Yi Tiancheng released their Jindan phenomenons, they might be able to stop Su Zimo. The Jindan phenomenons of the remaining Glass Palace cultivators could deal with cultivators of other sects and factions. However, against Su Zimo, they were useless and could not withstand a single blow. A few punches and kicks were enough to shatter them into pieces. The massacre continued. Gradually, the ancient city quietened down. By now, Su Zimo had already chased them to the plains outside the ancient city. As long as it was a Glass Palace cultivator, he would kill them even if they were thousands of kilometers away. As time passed by, the night gradually faded. When the skies brightened, a green figure appeared on the horizon where the sun rose. His robes fluttered and his long hair danced as he stepped through the air and returned bathed in the sunlight. Chapter 662. In a single night, the ancient city was destroyed. None of the 2,000-odd cultivators of Glass Palace, including the 6 sealers, survived. Tang Shiyun stood on the city wall in a daze and surveyed the dilapidated ancient city that was filled with corpses and bloodstained with corpses in a daze. The ancient city was completely taken over by demon beasts. She was the only cultivator who was still alive. If not for the fact that Su Zimo handed her over to Monkey, Ling Hu and the other demon beasts before he left, she would have been devoured by the other demon beasts a long time ago. Although it was only a single night, Tang Shiyun felt like a long time had passed. She witnessed her fellow sect mates being killed mercilessly with her very own eyes. However, that person was her benefactor. She also witnessed tens of thousands of cultivators being buried here. She witnessed with her very own eyes how an indestructible ancient city that was filled with life was reduced to ruins overnight. Tang Shiyun should have hated Su Zimo. After all, he was the one who killed the cultivators of Southern Dual Sect personally and attracted a beast stampede that massacred more than half of the cultivators in the ancient city. However, she could not bring herself to hate him. It was not only because Su Zimo had once saved her. More than that, it was also because deep in her heart, she could not tell who was right and who was wrong. Right then, that person returned, bathed in the sunlight. Monkey grinned, Ling Hu howled. The golden lion roared into the skies and Little Fox gripped her fists excitedly. As Tang Shiyun pondered, that person had already arrived on the city wall. Pursing her lips, Tang Shiyun welcomed him with cupped fists. Thank you for sparing my life, fellow Taoist. I sigh I'll be taking my leave now. She could already feel that she did not fit in with everything around her. She could not stay for long. Yes, Su Zimo said, although it's daytime now, there are many dangers in the ancient battlefield. If you're not in a hurry, you can rest here for a period of time. I'll escort you to the other gathering grounds. The reason for this period of time was to wait for Monkey, Ling Hu and the other demons to recover from their injuries. Tang Shiyun shook her head. She really didn't know how to get along with Su Zimo. Seeing this, Su Zimo did not force him to stay and said, "Be careful on the road." Tang Shiyun nodded and left. Not long after she left the ancient city, she could not help but turn back to look at the green figure. It won't be long before news of what happened here spreads throughout the ancient battlefield. You have to be careful too. All right. A reply came from the ancient city. Tang Shiyun sighed inwardly. She let go of the faint reluctance in her heart and sped away. On the city wall, Su Zimo's gaze swept past Monkey, the Ling Hu, the Little Fox and the Golden Lion one by one. When he saw that the demons were recovering well, he could not hide the joy in his eyes and could not help but laugh. There was nothing more joyous than reuniting with an old friend. Between Su Zimo, Monkey and the Spirit Tiger, there seemed to be countless things that they wanted to talk about that could never be finished. Su Zimo. Ignoring the injuries on his body, Monkey staggered over and punched Su Zimo's chest heavily with his long fists. Dong! Su Zimo did not dodge and took the hit head-on. The man and Monkey exchanged glances and burst into laughter. It was as though they had traveled back in time and returned to the days when they fought side by side in Songlang Mountain Range. The Golden Lion was envious of their chemistry and relationship. It had already witnessed how strong and terrifying Su Zimo was, and wanted to befriend him as well. However, it had only known Su Zimo for a couple of days after all. Prior to this, It was Su Zimo's mount and naturally could not compare to Monkey and the Linghu. Linghu closed in and shook his head, smiling. Boss has just condensed his inner core and can speak in human language. The first thing he said was your name. Su Zimo was touched when he heard that. Prior to this, be it Monkey or Linghu, neither of them had condensed their inner cores and could not speak in human language. The communication between them was mostly a series of roars. To think that the first thing Monkey learned was to call his name. It had been more than 20 years. Monkey had changed quite a bit. The only thing that did not change was the wildness in its body, the arrogance in its eyes and its feelings for Su Zimo. Linghu said smugly, after I could take on human form, I gave myself a name so that it would be easier for me to roam the world in the future. Monkey pouted its lips in disdain. Linghu perked up and took a deep breath, shouting solemnly, my name is Hu Batian! Exclamation point. Little Fox could not help but burst into laughter. Su Zimo could not help but laugh as well. Linghu panicked the moment he saw that. What's wrong? What's wrong with that name? Disgusting. Monkey spat and attacked Linghu mercilessly. Linghu glared and straightened his neck, retorting with a flushed face, how is it disgusting? That's such a good name. It's so domineering that it's rare in this world. Su Zimo laughed. That's a tacky name. However, it suits your aura quite well. You guys are just jealous of me. Linghu's face darkened and he grit his teeth in anger. His body shuddered and his wounds tore open. What about you? Didn't you give yourself a name? Su Zimo turned to look at Monkey. Monkey pouted its lips and raised its head in disdain. I don't need a name. From this day forth, I want to be the strongest monkey demon in this world. When others talk about monkey demons, the first thing they think of is me. Su Zimo nodded. That was true domineering. Monkey's ambitions had never been small. Back in Songlang Mountain Range, he had always wanted to be the demon king of Songlang Mountain Range. Reality had proven that Monkey had the capabilities as well. His bloodline was extremely unusual. On the city walls, Su Zimo witnessed Monkey's berserk battle. A secret skill that could activate the power of one's bloodline was definitely a legacy that only an extremely rare and powerful race would possess. Su Zimo recalled something else. In Tianhuang mainland, apart from him, Monkey was the only one who knew a section of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, the Tendon's transformation section. The most likely possibility was that Dai Yu imparted it personally. The fact that Dai Yu imparted it to him was proof that Monkey had a huge background. Su Zimo asked, where did you guys go after leaving Misty Peak? How did you enter the ancient battlefield and find your way here? When we heard that your whereabouts were unknown, Boss couldn't stay on Misty Peak any longer. Linghu said later on, Boss insisted on heading down the mountain to look for you and I left as well. Without you, there was no point for the two of us to stay on Misty Peak. Initially, that silly bird wanted to sneak out with us as well. However, it was caught red-handed by that old immortal crane and had no choice but to stay on Misty Peak. At the mention of the silly bird, Linghu's eyes revealed a look of longing and melancholy for once. I wonder how that silly bird is now and if it has formed an inner core. The silly bird that Linghu was referring to was the child of the immortal crane on Misty Peak. Linghu had spent the longest time with Little Crane and naturally had a deep relationship with it. Chapter 663. The last time Su Zimo saw Little Crane was during the battle at Misty Peak. At that time, Blood Crow Palace had invaded en masse with the intention of annihilating Misty Peak, and Little Crane had yet to condense an inner core. However, Su Zimo believed that with the guidance of the old immortal crane, it shouldn't be an issue for Little Crane to condense an inner core within 20 years. Now that he thought about his time at Misty Peak with Monkey, Linghu, Little Crane and Night Spirit by his side, it was truly a rare moment of peace and joy. Those days were most likely impossible to return to. From now on, be it in the ancient battlefield or Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo would have to tread carefully. Linghu said, after the two of us left the mountain, we went to Dongling Valley to look for you and asked around along the way. However, there was no news for 2 to 3 years. You don't know, but during that period of time, Boss and I. Monkey frowned and glared at Linghu. Linghu did not continue. Back then, Su Zimo fled from Dongling Valley with blood escape. In order to escape the pursuit of Blood Crow Palace's lord, he escaped into one of the 9 forbidden grounds of Tianhuang mainland, Dragon Bone Valley. Thereafter, he got into trouble with Night Spirit and ate the dragon egg before being brought to the capital of Great Zhou by Lin Xuanji. In order to avoid the pursuit of the dragons, he did not dare to leave the city and by chance, changed his name to Mo Ling and lived in seclusion in the capital for close to 3 years. Even the people of Misty Peak did not know about his whereabouts or whether he was dead or alive, let alone Monkey and Linghu, the 2 demon beasts. Since they could not take on human form, they would definitely be killed if they were seen by cultivators. Even though the spirit tiger did not continue, Su Zimo could guess that in order to find out about his whereabouts, they had gone through countless hardships and dangers in those 2 to 3 years. Linghu pondered for a moment before continuing. After that, we stayed in Black Crow Mountain for a period of time. When we heard about the Paragon battle at the Great Qian Ruins, we thought that you were dead and even went to Dragon Burial Valley to pay our respects to you. Su Zimo smiled. After that, we wandered around and finally ran to the Wild Lion Ridge, Linghu said. Upon hearing this, the Golden Lion's expression changed. Su Zimo frowned slightly and asked, "One of the 8 demonic domains?" "Yes." Linghu nodded. "We've been here for 20 years and had no intention of entering this place. However, it was only after the battle at Songlang Mountain Range and you declared war on Glass Palace that we knew that you were still alive. After that, we managed to win 2 spots in the territory we were in. A high-tier demon helped us get in. After listening for a long time, the Golden Lion finally found an opportunity to interrupt hurriedly. The 8 demon regions are filled with beasts and ferocious birds. It's dangerous everywhere, and there are even grand demons and old demons. Great demons were equivalent to conjoint body mighty figures of the human race. Old demons were equivalent to Mahayana patriarchs. The 8 demon regions were considered as the 8 largest gathering grounds of the demon race. From the weakest spirit beasts to the infamous grand demons that ruled over a region, all of them lived in the 8 demon regions. A place like Songlang Mountain Range was not even the tip of the iceberg of the 8 demon regions. It was said that there were even demon emperors in the 8 demon regions. Even cultivators did not dare to set foot in the 8 demon regions casually. The Golden Lion said, "The fights between the various territories are extremely intense for the sake of fighting for territory and the position of territorial lord. It's already very impressive that the 2 of you were able to get 2 spots without any backing from any race. For example, the Golden Lion had the backing of the Golden Lion lineage and had his own territory. As for Wild Lion Ridge, as the name suggested, it was ruled by the lion race and the Golden Lion was only one of the lineages of the lion race. To the Golden Lion, it was rather rare for Monkey and Linghu to be able to survive in Wild Lion Ridge for 20 years without any backing and even obtain 2 spots to enter the ancient battlefield. Monkey glanced at the Golden Lion and nodded. It was not easy for Monkey to give such a response. In the previous battle, Monkey and Linghu witnessed how the Golden Lion saved the little fox and fended off the Glass Palace group single-handedly. That was the reason why they felt that the Golden Lion was qualified to sit with them. Linghu was already over the moon after being praised by the Golden Lion. However, at this moment he pretended to be deep and nodded. "Goldie, you're not bad. You're very insightful. I like you a lot." The Golden Lion's face darkened and he rolled his eyes at the mention of Goldie. The little fox covered her mouth and chuckled at the side. She had lived in the cave since she was young and was imprisoned by the gigantic crocodile, living in fear every single day. Now that she was reunited with Su Zimo and saw so many companions, she was truly happy from the bottom of her heart as she listened to their conversations. When Linghu saw the little fox's smile, he smiled foolishly as well and wagged his tail ingratiatingly. There was no trace of dignity left. Bang! Monkey could not stand it any longer and raised his hand to slap Linghu's face, scolding in disappointment. "Why are you wagging your tail again? Are you a dog?" "Ha ha!" Su Zimo roared in laughter, as though they had returned to the past. Linghu did not dare to hit Monkey and crawled up in a huff. Wagging his tail, he grumbled with a pitiful expression. "Why are you always hitting when we're talking properly? Furthermore, these are all new friends. Give me some face." Monkey scoffed and placed his hands behind his back, looking into the skies and ignoring Linghu. Ling Hu looked at Suzimo bitterly and closed in beside the little fox, whispering, "Little Tanuki, let me tell you, I didn't like wagging my tail in the past. It's all Suzimo's fault." When she heard Ling Hu address her that way, the little fox shuddered and retreated with goosebumps. Suzimo raised his brows slightly. How could this matter be blamed on him? Ling Hu said mysteriously, "Little Tanuki, you've got to stay away from Suzimo in the future. That man has a weird fetish. Back then, after he caught me, he forced me to bark all day until my throat was hoarse. Let's not talk about those days. From then on, I started wagging my tail unknowingly. Before I met Suzimo, I was a real man." Suzimo smiled. Back then, he caught Ling Hu because he wanted to uncover the secret of the tiger and leopard sounds in the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness through Ling Hu's roars. That was the reason why he forced Ling Hu to roar back then. Even now, Ling Hu did not know the reason and merely thought that Suzimo was a pervert. The little fox pouted unhappily. She hated it when others badmouthed Suzimo. "You're the one with the weird fetish. You like to wag your tail. You're a dog." With that said, the little fox turned and scurried to Suzimo's side, leaving Ling Hu alone in the wind and howling internally, "I'm really not a dog. I'm a tiger." The little fox wanted to jump onto Suzimo as usual. Unexpectedly, Suzimo retreated and looked at her with a fake smile, asking, "Little fox, when did you learn to take human form?" "A long time ago." The little fox lowered her head shyly. Then, with a shake of her body, she transformed back into the devastatingly beautiful young girl wrapped in a thin red veil. She bowed towards Suzimo and said gently, "Greetings, young master." Drip, drip. A strange sound came from the side. Ling Hu's eyes were fixed and his mouth was agape as saliva dripped all over the ground. His tail was wagging so hard that it was about to reach the heavens. Monkey reared his head and sighed. Raising his hand, he sent Ling Hu flying with a slap and grit his teeth. "Sorry, I couldn't hold it in." Chapter 664. It had been more than 20 years. Ling Hu was still as carefree and Monkey was still as arrogant. Everything was the same as before. Suzimo felt a sense of warmth in his heart as he watched them fool around. At times, interacting with demons was much simpler. There was no scheming or scheming. However, the human heart was much more complicated. Everything was much simpler after Monkey and Ling Hu entered the ancient battlefield. Just like how Glass Palace predicted that Suzimo would come knocking, they thought of the same thing and subdued the demons to launch a beast stampede. Little Fox had the same idea as well. Regretfully, there was no news of Mingzhan at all. "You guys recuperate here first. I'll go clean up the battlefield." Suzimo settled Monkey and the other demons down before getting up to leave. Tens of thousands of people were buried in this battle. The storage bags of those cultivators had to be collected. For the current Suzimo, other than Khanate spirit weapons or rare ancient treasures, other weapons were nothing to him. However, those storage bags could not be discarded casually either. What Suzimo valued the most were the spirit-gathering fruits, soul-nourishing blood ginsengs and other spirit herbs that the cultivators had collected. Those were consumables and the more the better. Demon beasts were everywhere in the ancient city. However, when Suzimo walked through the ancient city, those demon beasts chose to avoid him instinctively. Behind him was an obedient and slightly shy young girl in her prime. It was the little fox in human form. "What's the matter?" Suzimo did not stop in his tracks and glanced sideways. Little Fox lowered her head slightly and stole glances at Suzimo with her large, watery eyes, asking softly, "Young master, you won't blame me, right?" Little Fox could have taken on human form a long time ago. However, she chose to hide it because she was too embarrassed to say it out loud. She was still feeling uneasy. After pondering for a moment, Suzimo said intentionally, "Since you don't trust me, don't follow me from now on." The moment Little Fox heard that, she panicked and stood on the spot, tears welling up in her eyes as though they could fall at any moment. "My mother is dead. You abandoned me after bringing me out of the cave. I don't have any relatives now. Nobody wants me from now on. Wah." The little fox let out a wail and burst into tears. Suzimo was shocked. Initially, he said it casually to tease Little Fox. He did not expect her to take it for real. A few beast heads popped up on the city walls. Monkey, the spirit tiger and the golden lion were sprawled on top of the wall, peeking over secretly. Their eyes burned with the flames of gossip. The spirit tiger. Little Tanuki is being bullied. Suzimo must have taken advantage of her. I'm going down to help. Monkey, go ahead. The golden lion said, Warrior, take care. Linghu. Suzimo turned around and reached out to wipe away little fox's tears gently, smiling bitterly. Just now I'm just joking. Why would I blame you for something so trivial? Really? Little fox stopped crying and tilted her head slightly, asking in disbelief. Absolutely. You won't chase me away from now on. No. Thank you, young master. Little fox smiled through her tears. Her long eyelashes were still stained with sparkling tears, creating a beautiful world under the sunlight. Suzimo took more than half a day to tidy up the battlefield. He gathered the items in the storage bags. There were close to 100,000 flying swords and other spirit weapons, as well as countless elixirs and talismans. Few of those items were truly useful to Suzimo. He was not interested in ordinary spirit weapons. As for elixirs, he only consumed perfect elixirs with 5 elixir patterns. Among the 100,000 spirit weapons, there was only a single connate spirit weapon. It was the glove that Yi Tianqing wore earlier on. Although there was only one, that was more than enough for Suzimo. His right hand had the divine phoenix bone, and even dermic weapons could not shatter it. If he wore the connate spirit weapon glove on his left hand, his palms would be able to receive any weapon barehanded. It could be said to be invulnerable to weapons, water and fire. There were more than 100 spirit gathering fruits in the storage bags altogether. Be it demons or cultivators, 1 or 2 of them were sufficient for the refinement of their essence spirits. Any more would be useless. There were more than 100 of them, and it was enough for them to split. There were a total of 12,000 stalks of soul-nourishing blood ginseng. On the surface, that was a huge number. However, Suzimo had a feeling that the amount of soul-nourishing blood ginseng he needed was a few times more than ordinary cultivators. It was not only because he cultivated both demonic and immortality. More than that, be it his Jin Dan or inner core, they were both different from others. Furthermore, Monkey, Linghu and the other demons had to consume soul-nourishing blood ginseng to break through to the nascent soul realm. Therefore, Suzimo had to collect as many soul-nourishing blood ginseng as possible in the ancient battlefield. 10 days later, Monkey's bloodline was extremely strong. After cultivating the Void Thunder Manual, Linghu's bloodline contained the power of thunder. Spring thunder rumbled and all living beings were born. To begin with, thunder contained the power of life. Although the monkey and the spirit tiger were the most severely injured, their injuries were mostly healed in the span of 10 days. Both of them were active by nature, and did not wish to continue staying in the ancient city. Suzimo asked, Tell me, what are your plans after leaving the ancient city? I'll follow you, Monkey replied. The reason why he entered the ancient battlefield was for Suzimo to begin with. Linghu scratched his head and coughed gently. Licking his tiger face, he closed in beside the little fox and wagged his tail with a fawning smile. Little fox, where are you going? The little fox replied, I'm naturally going to follow you, young master. Piak. Linghu slapped his thigh and shouted, What a coincidence! We thought of the same thing. Bang! A coarse palm appeared from the side and slapped Linghu squarely on the face, sending him flying. F*CKU. Linghu's curses could be heard in midair. The little fox giggled endlessly. Suzimo turned to the golden lion and asked, What about you? If you want to leave, I'll give you some spirit gathering fruits and soul-nourishing blood ginseng. The golden lion replied, I don't have anywhere to go either. After pondering for a moment, the golden lion hesitated for a moment. If you don't mind, I can be your mount. He had already witnessed Suzimo's strength in the battle in the ancient city. Although he was unwilling in the depths of his heart, it was not embarrassing to be the mount of such a strong existence. Ha 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 ha. Suzimo reared his head in laughter and patted the golden lion on the shoulder. I still have to thank you for your help a few days ago. How can I treat you as a mount? Yellow hair, don't underestimate me. The golden lion was touched when it heard the first half. The golden lion's face darkened at the mention of yellow hair at the end, and it said with a bitter expression, Do you have any other names? Yellow hair is pretty good, Monkey consoled. If it were up to me, I'd like to call you Pekingese. The Golden Lion said. Yellow hair then. Su Zimo waved his hand and declared heroically, since that's the case, let's head to the center of the ancient battlefield and take a look at the Jindan phenomenon ranking. We'll see the paragons of Tianhuang mainland. I'm definitely going to fight for the #1 position. Let's go. Let's go. Ali, wait for me. Chapter 665. Su Zimo, Monkey, Linghu, Little Fox and the Golden Lion headed towards the center of the ancient battlefield. The fight for the Jindan phenomenon ranking would take place half a year later. The location was at the center of the ancient battlefield, Myriad Phenomenon City. Su Zimo did not know if Xiaoning would enter this place this time round. He did not know Ming Zhen's whereabouts either. However, the most likely place to meet the two of them was Myriad Phenomenon City. That was because every cultivator who entered the ancient battlefield would try their best to rush to Myriad Phenomenon City. Even cultivators who knew their limits and would not fight for a spot on the Jindan phenomenon ranking would rush over to witness the glory of the paragons of Tianhuang mainland and the clash of the ancient phenomenons. Nobody would miss out on a battle as such that happened only once in 100 years. Even watching from the sidelines would benefit one's cultivation immensely. Furthermore, the ancient battlefield was boundless and searching for the two of them without any clues was akin to searching for a needle in a haystack. Half a year later, cultivators from various major factions and sects of Tianhuang mainland would gather in Myriad Phenomenon City. Many unorthodox and powerful itinerant cultivators would gather, and it would be the place with the most information. Even if they could not meet the two of them, they might be able to find out some useful information. Of course, of the millions of cultivators who entered the ancient battlefield, less than half of them or even less would be able to reach Myriad Phenomenon City. Apart from the demon beasts and ancient living beings that resided in the intermediate ancient battlefield, the demons of Tianhuang mainland were teleported in to fight for treasures and resources as well. The journey to Myriad Phenomenon City that was at the center of the battlefield was extremely treacherous. For the vast majority of cultivators, they would choose to travel during the day and try their best to find a place to rest before nightfall. They would continue their journey at daybreak. At night in the ancient battlefield, birds and beasts roamed freely and not many people dared to travel at night. However, day and night did not affect Su Zimo's group at all. Apart from Su Zimo, the other four were true spirit demons. Although there were only 5 of them, none of them were to be trifled with. Su Zimo, Monkey, and Linghu didn't say anything. Although the Golden Lion was suppressed by Su Zimo in a few moves, it was still a pure-blooded ferocious beast after all. Furthermore, it belonged to the bloodline of the Golden Lion of Wild Lion Ridge. Its bloodline was extraordinary and surpassed most of the monster race. Even the weakest-looking little fox was unable to get close to most of the demonic beasts. The fox race was a natural seductress. Just by standing there, they had the ability to charm all living beings. As long as they curled their fingers and released some bewitching fragrance, it was enough to attract all the demons to prostrate themselves. Linghu had already been bewitched by the little fox to the point that he was dizzy and lost all sense of direction. Along the way, Linghu followed behind the little fox, wagging his tail and asking about her well-being. He was so caring that he was just short of being the little fox's mount. That fawning face of his naturally deserved another round of slaps from the monkey. However, the little fox always hid far away. If it couldn't hide, it would transform into its original form and hide in Su Zimo's embrace. Linghu gritted his teeth in hatred, but could only glare at it helplessly. For the past few days, Linghu would sigh bitterly each time the little fox snuggled in Su Zimo's embrace. In the blink of an eye, a month passed. During this period of time, there were naturally many battles with other demons, and each time, it was more daunting than dangerous. The Golden Lion became familiar with Monkey, and Linghu as well, and gradually integrated into the group. That night, Su Zimo's group continued forward. The man was dressed in green robes and had delicate features while the girl was ravishing. Su Zimo and the little fox walked side by side at the front, looking extremely compatible. Monkey, Linghu and the Golden Lion followed behind. Linghu was dejected and listless. The Golden Lion asked curiously, "Brother Hu, Why haven't you been pestering the little fox during this period of time? With his hands behind his back, Ling Hu raised his head slightly and pretended to sigh deeply. Sigh, I've fallen out of love. Monkey rolled his eyes and stifled a chuckle. The golden lion consoled its fine brother Hu. When we return to Wild Lion Ridge, I'll introduce you to a few girls to relieve your boredom. Really? Ling Hu's eyes lit up and his melancholy just now vanished without a trace as he nearly drooled. It must be true. The golden lion patted its chest loudly. Good brother. Ling Hu hugged the golden lion's shoulders excitedly. Monkey pouted and could not be bothered with the two of them. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly frowned and his ears twitched as he said in a deep voice, Everyone watch out. A beast stampede is swarming over. Beast stampede. Monkey narrowed his eyes with a scarlet glint. Ling Hu and the golden lion retracted their smiles and had grim expressions. The presence of a beast stampede meant that there was a demon king within it. Furthermore, they were no longer in the periphery of the ancient battlefield. A demon king that could subdue demons in this region and trigger a beast stampede was definitely terrifyingly strong, and was not to be trifled with. If the five of them were to fight one-on-one, they would naturally not be afraid of anyone. However, if they were to encounter a beast stampede, they would definitely be embroiled in an endless struggle. A while later, Monkey and the others finally felt the ground tremble. Boom! Boom! It was as though a massive army was charging over. Although it was night time, Su Zimo's vision was powerful, and he could clearly see dust billowing in the distant horizon with a frightening might. The five of them stopped in their tracks. Not long after, the beast stampede arrived. Most of the beast stampede were ancient remnant beasts, but there were also many pure-blooded ferocious beasts. Each of them had rumbling demonic chi and menacing gazes, as though they wanted to skin Su Zimo's group of five alive. The strange thing was that there were more than 1,000 humans in the center of the demon beasts. Although they were in human form, demonic chi emanated from them as well. It was clear that they were transformed from demon beasts. In the center of the 1,000 people, a man and woman stood on a war chariot like stars surrounding the moon. The man's face was skinny and he had a feminine expression. He wore colorful clothes that looked extremely gaudy. The woman beside him looked like she was in her late 20s and was also transformed from a demon. She wore a green blouse and pants and her black hair was tied behind her head like a waterfall, giving her a heroic aura. The woman's legs were long and voluptuous. They were perfect. Ling Hu's eyes widened when he saw the woman's legs. Su Zimo frowned slightly. The woman seemed to be restricted and her body was coiled by a thin rainbow silk. She could not move at all and even her lips were sealed, unable to speak. The rainbow silk was coiled around every single ferocious beast in the beast stampede as well. The other end was in the hands of the 1,000-odd demon beasts in human form. It was clear that the beast stampede before them was subdued by the 1,000-odd demon beasts in human form. As for the 1,000-odd demon beasts in human form, they were under the command of the colorful robed man on the war chariot. The colorful robed man was the demon king of this beast stampede. After catching sight of Su Zimo's group, the long-legged woman on the war chariot seemed extremely agitated and whimpered non-stop with an indescribable expression in her eyes. Chapter 666. It was only normal for demon beasts to be captured and subdued. Although they vaguely understood that the long-legged woman was seeking help from them, Su Zimo and the others could not possibly take the initiative to interfere in something as such. In the forest, the strong preyed on the weak and there was no logic to speak of. Furthermore, this was the ancient battlefield. Su Zimo retracted his gaze. The long-legged woman had not given up and was shouting with all her might. However, she could only make whimpering sounds. The colorful robed man smiled. Stop arguing. Those demon beasts can't even protect themselves, how can they come to save you? If you're obedient, I won't make things difficult for you. Roar. Among the 1,000-odd people, a man's expression changed and he suddenly let go of the thread in his hands. An ancient remnant beast roared and charged out. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived before Su Zimo. The ancient remnant beast had a menacing gaze and opened its mouth, emitting a stench. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged. He only struck when the demon beast was right in front of him. He did not use any special moves. He simply extended his palm and landed a heavy slap on the face of the ancient remnant beast. Bang! The ancient remnant beast's gigantic body was sent flying. By the time it landed on the ground, it was already dead. Although the surface of its head was intact, the inside was shattered by Su Zimo's palm strike. It was clean and neat. The colorful robed man narrowed his eyes. There were way too many cultivators in the ancient battlefield who could kill ancient remnant beasts. However, there were extremely few people who could do it so casually. Do you have a death wish? Monkey was the first to lose it as a scarlet light flashed in his eyes. Channeling his blood chi, he transformed into his true form and stomped his gigantic feet heavily. There was a boom and the ground quaked. Monkey had a prideful expression and glared at the colorful robed man with a ferocious gaze. As long as Su Zimo gave the order, he would be the first to charge out. Monkey did not care who the other party was or what the situation was before him. Anyone who provoked him would fight. Roar! Roar! The golden lion and Ling Hu growled at the same time. The bones in their bodies crackled and their bodies trembled as they transformed into their true forms. To the demon race, only by transforming into their true forms could they unleash their peak combat strength. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he shielded the little fox behind him. His blood chi was strong and strong, surging into the skies like a blazing furnace. Seeing this, the long-legged woman was extremely excited. On the other hand, the colorful robed man's pupils constricted as his expression turned grave. In his eyes, although the auras of the monkey, tiger, and lion were powerful and dense with demonic chi, they did not make him feel threatened. However, he sensed a trace of danger from this green-robed man. Extremely dangerous. This person's vitality was too strong. The colorful robed man had a premonition that even though he could kill the 5 of them with the help of the beast's stampede, he would suffer heavy losses. The colorful robed man's expression was uncertain as he weighed the gains and losses in his heart. On the other side, Su Zimo did not take the initiative to attack. After all, there was no deep feud between them. Furthermore, he could sense that the colorful robed man had a powerful background and was even protected by the beast's stampede. It was naturally for the best if they could avoid this battle. Of course, Su Zimo was fearless as well. At that moment, most of his attention was on the long-legged woman beside the colorful robed man. For some reason, Su Zimo felt that the long-legged woman's gaze was familiar. After walking for a while, he could not help but turn to Monkey and ask, "Boss, what do you think?" Monkey stifled a laugh. "If I were you, I would save them as I wish. Why are you so conflicted and wishy-washy? How annoying." "That's true, but I can't implicate everyone because of my rashness," Ling Hu said with a bitter expression. The golden lion leaned over and whispered, "Brother Hu, you've taken a liking to her, haven't you? Get lost." Ling Hu cursed in annoyance. "Heis." After taking a few steps, Ling Hu sighed again. "I don't know why either, but I feel like I know that woman. How strange." Suddenly, Monkey frowned and said in a deep voice, "Now that you mention it, I seem to have the same feeling as well." When he heard that, Su Zimo suddenly stopped in his tracks. Ling Hu was not paying attention and almost bumped into him. Su Zimo turned around slowly with a cold glint in his eyes. Chapter 667. The beast stampede surged and demonic chi surged into the air. Dust billowed on the plains and the scattered demons had long fled far away. On the centermost war chariot, the colorful robed man glared at the woman beside him with a dark expression and said coldly, "You had better behave yourself. If not for the fact that I need your blood to cultivate daily, I would have killed you long ago." The woman lowered her head and her eyes were filled with despair, as though she had lost her soul. "You don't have to rely on others to save you," the colorful robed man sneered. "In the ancient battlefield, any sect or faction that sees us, the rainbow wolf spiders, will have to retreat." He was not bragging when he said that. Even the successors and disciples of super sects would not want to provoke a group of demon beasts as such, especially at night. Fortunately, those few people know what's good for them. Otherwise, they would have been corpses by now. The colorful robed man harumphed. Swoosh! Suddenly, the sound of clothes fluttering could be heard from behind him. Sensing something, the colorful robed man turned around. In the distance, a green figure was rushing over at lightning speed. His speed was extremely fast. Just now, he was still in the horizon and arrived before them in the blink of an eye. The green-robed cultivator that they had encountered earlier had returned. Monkey and the other three caught up gradually behind the green-robed cultivator as well. Suzemo stood in midair beneath the beast stampede, ignoring the countless demon beasts with menacing gazes and gaping mouths. His expression was calm and his aura was strong as he blocked the war chariot. The colorful robed man narrowed his eyes and his pupils constricted as a killing intent flashed through the depths of his eyes. When the woman saw that, she was agitated but could not speak. Audacious. Insolent. A few young men stood out from both sides of the war chariot with unfriendly expressions and hollered. Thin threads flickered on their fingertips, as though they were ready to attack at any moment. Roar. The beast's stampede let out a deafening roar that shook the world and shook one's mind. However, be it Monkey, the Linghu or the Golden Lion, their mental fortitude was much stronger after the Battle of the Ancient City. Furthermore, they had experienced countless battles in the past few days. A scene like this could no longer scare them. Even the most timid of them all, the little fox, was only slightly pale at this moment. Her gaze was firm, without the slightest bit of fear. In her heart, as long as Suzemo decided on something, she would follow him without hesitation, regardless of whether it was a mountain of blades or a sea of flames. The colorful robed man pressed his hands against the air. The roars of the beast tide gradually calmed down. The colorful robed man raised his brows slightly and asked faintly, "What do you mean, fellow Taoist?" After blocking the chariot's path, Suzemo's gaze fell on the long-legged woman's face, as if he wanted to see something. Monkey and Linghu were the same. Suzemo took a deep look at the woman before turning his gaze towards the colorful robed man. He said indifferently, "I suddenly thought of something, so I came back to confirm it." "Oh." The colorful robed man frowned and asked, "What is it?" Suzemo was expressionless as he pointed to the woman on the chariot. "Please remove the seal on her mouth. I want to ask her a few things." Suzemo's tone was no longer polite. Although he said please, it sounded more like an order. "Who do you think you are to speak to our young master in that manner?" A rainbow wolf spider at the side stood out and hollered. Linghu glared and hollered, "Who do you think you are? We're talking to your master, who are you to interrupt? Scram to the side. You must have a death wish." The 1,000-odd rainbow wolf spiders had cold expressions as demonic chi emanated from their bodies, revealing menacing expressions. Their bones mutated and the flesh on their faces swelled. A layer of colorful fur appeared on their skin and sharp green mouthparts extended from their mouths, emitting a foul stench. The colorful robed man's expression turned cold as well. His gaze was dark as he said in an unfriendly tone, "Let me give you a piece of advice, don't push your luck. Just now I'm already regretting letting you guys go. You'd better not force me to change my mind." Bang! 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 Beside the chariot, the bodies of dozens of young men shuddered. In the blink of an eye, their bodies expanded and transformed into frightening gigantic spiders. They had the heads of wolves and the bodies of spiders. Demonic chi surged and they were covered in fine fur with 8 legs. The color of each leg was different. Their gigantic abdomens were spitting out spider webs of different colors. They were densely packed and could form an inescapable net to wrap around them at any moment. Rainbow wolf spiders. Monkey twisted its neck and its eyes were bloodshot. It gripped its fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard as its fighting spirit rumbled. Both sides were at daggers drawn. As long as Suzemo or the colorful robed man said anything wrong, a huge battle could break out. Suddenly, Suzemo smiled. "How about this? I'll take a step back and not ask her about those things. A wise man submits to circumstances." The colorful robed man nodded. "You guys had better disappear from my sight before I change my mind. Otherwise, hold on." Before the colorful robed man could finish, Suzemo interrupted him. "I won't ask her about those things. However, I'll still have to trouble you to release her seal. I want to see what her true form is." For some unknown reason, the colorful robed man suddenly felt uneasy. There was naturally no way he would listen to Suzemo's instructions and release the woman's seal so easily. The colorful robed man thought for a moment and said deeply, There's nothing much about her true form. She's just an extremely ordinary crane. When they heard that, everyone no longer had any doubts. Suzimo retracted his smile and nodded with a cold expression. Good, very good. Monkey's bloodshot eyes lit up. Ling Hu could no longer hold it in and looked at the long-legged woman agitatedly. Silly bird, silly bird. Is that you? The long-legged woman's eyes were bloodshot and tears streamed down like rain. The colorful robed man seemed to have realized something and frowned, asking instead, You guys know each other? You don't have to change your mind. Suzimo glared at the colorful robed man coldly with killing intent and said word by word, That's because I've already changed my mind. Before he finished his sentence, a blood-red saber had already appeared in Suzimo's hands. 6 spirit patterns flashed. Instantly blood chi surged into the air. Chapter 668. Kill! Suzimo hollered and gripped Blood Quencher tightly with both hands. His blood chi rumbled as he descended from the skies and slashed down heavily at the colorful robed man. The blood beam expanded and extended 100 feet. The momentum and killing intent of that slash was so strong that it seemed as though it wanted to rip the voids apart. The colorful robed man's expression changed slightly. He could sense the power contained within that slash. He would definitely be at a disadvantage if he took it head-on. The colorful robed man tapped his feet gently and dodged to the side with an extremely agile movement technique. The blood beam descended and slashed the war chariot heavily. With a loud boom, the terrifying power shattered the war chariot into pieces. His green robes fluttered. Before the war chariot shattered, Suzimo had already reached out and saved the woman. Blood Quencher swayed continuously on the woman's body with a flash of saber light. Although Blood Quencher's body was massive, it was as smooth as water in Suzimo's hands. It severed all the spider silk on the woman's body without harming her at all. Suzimo gripped the woman's wrist and circulated his inner core. Rich demonic chi surged into her body, and before long, he discovered a few seals within the woman's body. Demonic chi surged and gushed over like a tsunami. Bang! 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 The woman's body shuddered gently and the seals were removed. She reverted to her true form with a red dot on her head and spread her wings, crying loudly. It was Little Crane from Misty Peak. Little Crane was slightly different from ordinary cranes. Ordinary cranes were snow-white in color, but Little Crane's body was slightly green and was extremely recognizable. Suzimo could clearly sense that Little Crane's blood chi was deteriorating badly. Although she could revert to her true form, she was powerless to fight. You guys protect her. I'll go kill those spiders, Suzimo said with a cold and murderous expression. Monkey, Ling Hu and the Golden Lion surrounded Little Crane and Fox swiftly, protecting them in a circle as they clashed violently against the incoming beast's stampede. Rustle! Rustle! Sand and gravel flew everywhere. A large centipede that was dozens of feet long dashed over, its entire body red. His 100 legs were as sharp as blades as he sliced across the sand and rocks, causing sparks to fly everywhere. He was filled with demonic chi and gave off a nauseating stench. Just as the centipede pounced on him, Ling Hu leaped up and opened his bloody mouth. Reaching out with his tiger claws, he pressed down on the centipede's body and bit down viciously on its neck. Crack! Ling Hu's powerful bite directly snapped the centipede's neck. As soon as the poisonous demonic aura reached them, it was completely purified by the lightning flashing on Ling Hu's body. Roar! The energy and blood in the Golden Lion's body surged as it let out a deafening roar. Waves of air billowed and a visible ripple appeared. The Golden Lion's roar caused a wolf that had just charged forward to bleed from all 7 orifices of its head, and it died on the spot. Among the 100 beasts, the lion's roar contained a powerful explosive force, firm and fierce. In fact, it could even subdue evil demons. In the ancient era, a mighty figure of the Buddhist monasteries comprehended a secret skill of sound in a fight against the lion race. It was the current lion roar of the Buddhist monasteries. The other ancient remnant beasts were stunned for a moment. Before they could react, the Golden Lion lunged forward and bit all of them to death. Whoosh! 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 A earth dragon that was more than 100 feet long and as thick as a water bucket shook its head and tail, charging towards Monkey with a ferocious gaze. Earth dragons were not dragons and resembled lizards. They were a branch of the crocodile race and possessed a trace of the bloodline of dragons. They were extremely strong and were covered in scales that were invulnerable to weapons, fire and water. Even perfect-grade spirit weapons could not penetrate the defenses of earth dragons. The greatest weakness of earth dragons was their abdomen. That was the only part of their bodies that was not covered by scales. However, earth dragons were extremely smart. Even with their inner cores, they rarely flew in the air and would stick close to the ground most of the time, not giving their enemies any chance. Dust billowed as the earth dragon charged forward. Opening its gigantic mouth that was filled with fangs, it bit towards Monkey's calf. If that bite connected, Monkey's calf would definitely be snapped. At the same time, a heaven-devouring mastiff seized the opportunity and lunged forward from the side. Opening its bloodied mouth, it leaped and bit towards Monkey's throat with a devouring might. Monkey roared furiously and raised its leg the moment the earth dragon bit down. Snap! The earth dragon missed. Monkey had just raised its leg and stomped down fiercely. Boom! The gigantic leg stomped down heavily on the earth dragon's head, and a terrifying power was injected. The earth dragon's head sank into the ground and was crushed by Monkey. On the other side, Monkey reached out with both arms and grabbed the heaven-devouring mastiff's jaw. A scarlet glint shone in Monkey's eyes and his arms swelled instantly. His muscles bulged and knotted like the roots of an ancient tree, tough and powerful. Die! Monkey roared and exerted strength with both arms, grabbing the heaven-devouring mastiff's jaw and yanking it to both sides. Shing! A blood mist spewed out. Countless organs scattered and the stench of blood filled the air. The heaven-devouring mastiff was torn into two by Monkey's bare hands. Monkey was drenched in blood and tossed the broken corpse of the heaven-devouring mastiff to the side casually. With a torrential ferocity, he swung his gigantic fists and crushed another incoming ferocious beast. Although the little fox was protected in the middle by Monkey and the others, she was not idle. An ancient gigantic elephant charged over with a massive body that was comparable to a mountain. With a frightening aura, it swung its gigantic trunk, as though it could sweep down the stars in the skies. The power of the gigantic elephant was the most terrifying, and could even match up to dragons. That was the origin of the power of the dragon elephant. If the ancient gigantic elephant charged over, the formation formed by Monkey, the Linghu and golden lion would most likely be destroyed instantly. The little fox glared at the eyes of the ancient gigantic elephant with a demonic glint in her beautiful eyes. Gradually, the ancient gigantic elephant's speed slowed down, and it went into a daze. The little fox opened her mouth slightly and spat out a misty fragrance. As the fragrance wafted over, the ancient mammoth's eyes were filled with bewilderment. Go stop them! The little fox's voice sounded. As though it had lost its soul, the ancient gigantic elephant obeyed the little fox's orders. Swinging its thick trunk, it turned and charged into the beast's stampede for a massacre. The trunk was like an ancient divine whip, and any living being that was struck would definitely have their tendons snapped and their bones snapped. Its massive body crushed everything in its path, and some of the demon beasts that could not dodge in time were severely injured and spat out blood. A hint of chaos appeared in the beast's stampede. However, that chaos was nothing more than a small wave in the tides compared to the torrential beast stampede that disappeared in the blink of an eye. Although the ancient gigantic elephant was extremely strong, it could not withstand the impact of the beast stampede and was drowned by the endless beast stampede in the blink of an eye, leaving only a skeleton behind. As for Monkey, the Linghu and golden lion, their situation was not optimistic either. All three of them possessed torrential combat strength, and there were already hundreds of demon beast corpses beneath their feet. However, the beast stampede was endless and charged relentlessly. Inevitably, wounds appeared on the bodies of the three of them and fresh blood flowed. There was no way out for them in this battle. In reality, Suzimo had already held back all the rainbow wolf spiders. Otherwise, Monkey and the other two's defenses would have been broken long ago, with the addition of the rainbow wolf spiders. On the other side, Suzimo took on the beast stampede alone and blocked all the rainbow wolf spiders on one side. The battle was even more intense. End of chapter. Chapter 669. The air was filled with a blood mist that was sharp and sharp. The sea-calming 5 stances and Shura saber were 2 different saber techniques that were immortal and fiend. However, Suzimo was able to wield them freely and seamlessly without any sluggishness. Countercurrent, raging tides, vortex, ripple. Ghost whales, blood flow, purgatory, white bones, fiend shadows, walking corpses. Although Suzimo was the only one on the battlefield with a single saber, in the eyes of the many rainbow wolf spiders, it was as though a tsunami was surging and crashing against the shore. Ghost wails echoed in their ears, white bones beneath their feet and fiend shadows before them. Countless corpses crawled up from pools of blood. It was as though they were in the depths of hell. This was force. At the level of force, a cultivator's mind and spirit would be affected. It would cause all sorts of unbelievable illusions to appear before their eyes, and cause them to believe that it was real. In the mortal world, commoners would feel immense pressure when they saw the emperor and tremble in fear. In truth, that was because they were intimidated by the emperor's force. At that moment, there were already dozens of rainbow wolf spider corpses on the ground. Against the envelopment of that terrifying saber force, many rainbow wolf spiders would be sliced into 2 in the slightest moment of distraction, causing sticky green blood to flow out. The blood of rainbow wolf spiders was poisonous. When it landed on the ground, the surrounding vegetation withered in the blink of an eye. The initially moist soil began to dry up and showed signs of turning into gravel. Some demon beasts could not dodge in time and were tainted by the blood of the rainbow wolf spiders. Within 10 breaths they would fall to the ground and die. The toxicity was rare. Suzimo's blood chi was exuberant and he was like a blazing furnace. Before the demonic chi and venom could get close to him, they were vaporized into nothingness. The colorful robed man had already reverted to his true form. In contrast to the other rainbow wolf spiders, he was the smallest of them all. His 8 legs stomped down and his movement technique was unusually agile. He was extremely fast and did not take Suzimo head-on at all. Screech! Screech! The colorful robed man let out a series of ear-piercing cries, as if he was commanding the surrounding clansmen. Under his command, the surrounding rainbow wolf spiders quickly changed their formation. Their movements were shockingly fast, and they no longer fought Suzimo head-on. Instead, they tried their best to run around Suzimo. Whoosh! 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 As the rainbow wolf spiders ran in a crisscross pattern, they spat out rainbow silk from their abdomens that coiled around Bloodquencher's body. Bloodquencher was sharp and sharp. Coupled with Suzimo's explosive strength, it could even sever supreme-grade spirit weapons with ease. However, the silk of the rainbow wolf spider was extremely tough. Endless spider webs coiled around Bloodquencher, and even with the sharpness of the saber, it was difficult to sever them. Coupled with the fact that the spider silk was laced with poison to begin with, the spirit light on Bloodquencher dimmed gradually as the blood beam diminished continuously. Suzimo was still invincible on the battlefield. Not a single rainbow wolf spider could withstand his attacks. However, it did not take long before Bloodquencher was engulfed in the endless spider silk. Each time he swung his saber, Suzimo felt as though he was in a swamp, and the resistance increased tremendously. The main reason why most self-cultivators were unwilling to provoke rainbow wolf spiders was because the spider silk was the best counter to self-cultivators' spirit weapons. The spider silk was extremely domineering. Thankfully, Bloodquencher was a connate spirit weapon. If it was any other ordinary supreme-grade spirit weapon, it would have been crippled a long time ago by the endless spider silk. It was precisely because of that Suzimo did not release the candlelight sword formation the entire time. Although the sword formation was strong, it was formed from supreme-grade flying swords. As long as a single flying sword made a mistake, the entire sword formation would not be able to operate normally, and the losses would outweigh the gains. In reality, for the past 20 years, Suzimo had been considering how he could raise the grade of this set of flying swords by another level. All he had to do was increase the power of each flying sword by a little. If 27 flying swords were combined, their power would increase significantly. If they were condensed into the candlelight sword formation, their power would be even more terrifying. However, the battlefield was constantly changing, and Suzimo did not have the time to think too much. Although more than 100 rainbow wolf spiders were dead, and their numbers were still rising, Bloodquencher was completely trapped by the dense spider silk. It was almost like a cocoon and the saber could no longer be seen. Helpless, Suzimo could only let go. It wasn't because Blood Quencher wasn't sharp enough. It was just that everything countered each other. That was an eternal principle of the universe. Fufa. The colorful robed man laughed smugly and said sinisterly, "Do you think that you can challenge the authority of the rainbow wolf spider race just because you have a connate spirit weapon? I'll make you pay for the deaths of my clansmen." Although Suzimo lost Blood Quencher, he was fearless as he stood in midair and sneered, "At the end of the day, they're just a bunch of ugly bugs. So what if I kill them? Haven't you realized the situation you're in?" The colorful robed man reared his head in laughter. "You've already fallen into the rainbow web formation of our rainbow wolf spiders. Right now you're a bird in a cage and a turtle in a jar. There's no way you can escape." Shoo! 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 Many rainbow wolf spiders were still slithering in the voids and spitting spider silk. Unknowingly, the rainbow wolf spiders had already created a gigantic spider web around Suzimo. The endless spider silk coiled around him in an impenetrable manner. However, the layer of spiderweb was still getting thicker. He was completely isolated from the outside world. There was no air or spirit chi. It was completely sealed and he could not draw any energy from the outside world. Suzimo frowned slightly. Given his strength, he could rip apart a single strand of spider silk with ease even without the help of any weapons. However, when there were hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of strands of spider silk coiling together, it would form an inescapable net. The more he struggled, the deeper he would sink. "I can sense that your blood chi is extremely strong and exuberant with a boundless life essence." The rainbow wolf spider laughed menacingly. "Don't worry, I won't kill you directly. I'll rear you and devour your blood bit by bit. I believe that your blood will definitely be delicious." Suzimo's gaze was cold as he remarked icily, "You want to drink my blood? I'm afraid you won't be able to do so." "Retract the web." The colorful robed man hollered. Creak, creak, creak. The gigantic spider web squirmed and began to shrink. The spider web looked colorful, but it was filled with murderous intent and was laced with deadly poison. A rich scarlet demonic chi emanated from Suzimo's body. However, when it was enveloped by the rainbow web, the demonic chi sizzled. Interesting. Suzimo's gaze flickered as he murmured softly. Although he had only cultivated the core formation section of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, his demonic chi could defend against most injuries. To think that the rainbow wolf spider's web would be able to erode his demonic chi. A race that could dominate an entire demon region was definitely not to be underestimated. However, just like how the rainbow web countered Blood Quencher, everything in the world countered each other. Chapter 670. More and more rainbow wolf spiders crawled up and spat out silk continuously, weaving layer after layer on the gigantic colorful cocoon. Another group of rainbow wolf spiders stood in the surroundings and moved their legs, pulling at the spider silk. The gigantic cocoon was shrinking continuously. Suzimo's remaining space was shrinking. Within the cocoon, Suzimo was expressionless. Jean Dan gradually appeared from the black hole in his dantian and began to circulate slowly. A shuddering aura burst forth from his body. It was blazing and scorching. Crack, crack, crack. Instantly the ground quaked. Mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. Numerous shocking cracks appeared on the ground. Rumble. Boom. Volcanoes spewed and scarlet lava gushed out from the ground. In fact, it could even melt rocks and form a scarlet ocean. The temperature within the cocoon rose rapidly. When the lava splattered onto the rainbow spider silk, green smoke rose instantly. The spider silk was charred and dimmed, but it did not break. When the colorful robed man sensed the situation within, his pupils constricted and his expression changed slightly. Indeed, the spider silk of the rainbow wolf spider could counter most spirit weapons. However, there was always a counter to everything, and spider silk was most afraid of fire. Thankfully, the rainbow wolf spiders were royalty of the spider race and had a strong bloodline. Their spider silk was unusually tough, and they cultivated a special cultivation technique that allowed them to defend against most flames. If it was any other spider, the cocoon would have been burned to ashes a long time ago. When he saw that the cocoon was merely charred and not fatally damaged, the colorful robed man heaved a sigh of relief and sneered. "You're dreaming if you think that you can burn the spider silk of my rainbow wolf spider with a flame of that level." Even though he said that, the colorful robed man was also breaking out in cold sweat just now. In the cultivation world, there were a few cultivators from supersects that the rainbow wolf spiders would avoid at all costs. For example, the monks of Dipamkara Monastery of the 6 Buddhist monasteries would conjure a ball of true fire in their bodies the moment they started cultivating. It illuminated their organs and burned their bodies. It was extremely powerful. If the rainbow wolf spiders were tainted by the true fire of the monks of Dipamkara Monastery, they would be severely injured and might even be reduced to ashes. Right at this moment, the colorful robed man's expression changed. In his perception, the temperature of the cocoon was rising again at a terrifying speed. As if there was no limit. A ferocious head suddenly popped out from the crack in the ground. It emitted a terrifying aura. It had the head of a snake and the body of a python. Its entire body was crimson red. The scales on its body were stacked on top of one another. They were airtight and were burning with fine flames. Whoosh! The creature leaped and soared into the sky. A pair of scarlet-red wings that were burning with raging flames spread out from its back. Every time it flapped, it would set off a heat wave. The colorful robed man's eyes widened as he murmured, "Head of a snake, body of a python, scales of a dragon, wings of a phoenix, no horns on the top of its head, no feet under its abdomen." This is a memory buried in the depths of his bloodline gradually surfaced in his mind. Soaring snake. The colorful robed man cried out in alarm, and his expression changed drastically. In the depths of his soul, the fear that came from the ancient times made him unable to control his body and tremble. The soaring snake was a divine being of the flames of the primordial era, and its ferocity was not inferior to that of a phoenix. However, a terrifying living being as such had already gone extinct in the primordial era. It could be considered as the greatest natural enemy of the rainbow wolf spiders. Or rather, in the golden era of the primordial era where there were thousands of races, the rainbow wolf spiders were nothing and were nothing in the eyes of the soaring snake. The colorful robed man truly had not expected that Su Zimo would be able to summon this primordial divine being. The temperature within the cocoon rose rapidly. Su Zimo stood in the raging flames with his black hair dancing wildly. Bathed in the scarlet lava. His eyes were like lightning and his aura was torrential. Behind him, the massive body of the primordial soaring snake rose continuously. It was an extremely shocking scene. In fact, many rainbow wolf spiders froze on the spot and did not choose to escape right away. Sensing the restraint of the cocoon, the soaring snake turned its head and surveyed its surroundings. Its cold eyes were filled with endless ferocity and rage as it hissed into the skies. It was a divine being of the flames and had a noble bloodline. In the primordial era, small worms like the rainbow wolf spiders were no different from ants in its eyes. Now that it had reappeared after the passage of time, there was no way it would allow these worms to blaspheme it. Pust! 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 The primordial soaring snake flapped its blazing wings and its eyes spewed fire. Opening its gigantic mouth, it spat out streams of scorching scarlet lava. The lava that was spat out from the mouth of the primordial soaring snake was much more terrifying than the lava that gushed out from underground. Swoosh! Instantly, a ball of raging flames rose from the gigantic cocoon. Ah! Su Zimo tore through the air and reared his head to roar. The rainbow wolf spiders that were still climbing on the cocoon could not escape in time and fell into the sea of flames, letting out ear-piercing shrieks. Those flames were destructive against them. In the blink of an eye, the cocoon was reduced to ashes. The flames spread and engulfed the vast lands. Hundreds of rainbow wolf spiders were buried in the sea of flames without any corpses left. As long as the rainbow wolf spiders were tainted by a single spark, even if they could escape from the sea of flames, those sparks would be able to burn their entire bodies. That was the terror of the soaring snake's flames. Roar! Roar! The lava gushed and spread in all directions, burning everything within 1,000 kilometers. The entire beast stampede was in a mess as they roared and fled in all directions, afraid that they would be tainted by the surging scarlet lava. As though it was sentient, the soaring snake traveled through the flames and chased after the remaining rainbow wolf spiders. Su Zimo's gaze shifted and he glared at the colorful robed man who was fleeing into the distance. In a flash, he chased after the latter. The rainbow wolf spider was the main culprit behind the torment that little Crane had suffered. The colorful robed man moved all 8 legs and stuck close to the ground at a shocking speed, leaving a trail of dust behind him as he fled into the distance. You're still trying to escape? Su Zimo narrowed his gaze. Splash! His blood chi and spirit energy burst forth. Swoosh! At the same time, a pair of spirit wings extended from Su Zimo's back, and he raised his speed to his limits. Like a sharp arrow, he vanished from the spot instantly. The colorful robed man did not dare to linger for a single moment as he moved all 8 legs and fled with all his might. Thankfully, the rainbow wolf spiders were extremely fast and agile. If they were bent on escaping, most demon beasts would not be able to catch up to them. Suddenly, a buzzing sound echoed in the colorful robed man's ears. It was as though something was approaching rapidly. The colorful robed man turned back. That single glance scared him out of his wits. The green-robed cultivator was not far behind him, his eyes cold and murderous. Furthermore, the distance between the two of them was closing rapidly. At this rate, the green-robed man would be caught within 10 breaths. Suddenly, the colorful robed man stopped in his tracks and his body shrunk continuously, almost transforming into a spider the size of a palm. Moving all 8 legs, he burrowed into the ground beneath him and disappeared. Chapter 671. Su Zimo's gaze turned cold as he said coldly, "You're still trying to escape?" The fact that the rainbow wolf spiders were able to survive from the primordial era to this day naturally meant that they had extraordinary methods. Otherwise, they would have been eliminated a long time ago. It was a demonic art that was similar to earth escape. The rainbow wolf spiders would shrink their bodies and enter the soil. They would pass through the many narrow gaps underground at an extremely fast speed. If one was not careful, the rainbow wolf spiders would be 100 feet away. What was even more troublesome was that the movement of the rainbow wolf spiders through the gaps in the soil caused extremely small vibrations and was almost silent. It was difficult for living beings on the ground to detect them. Furthermore, there were many tiny insects and ants living in the soil. The movement of these ants was enough to completely drown out the sound of the rainbow wolf spiders. Unless Jining Jinjuan descended and released his spirit consciousness, he would not be able to track down the rainbow wolf spiders. Su Zimo was motionless and suddenly closed his eyes. His entire body fell into an almost ethereal state. The sound of the wind, the chirping of insects, the movement of ants, and all sorts of other noises were completely isolated by him. Heaven and earth listening. Su Zimo's 5 senses were way too sharp after cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Although he did not have an essence spirit, he could sense everything with his 5 senses, and an image formed in his mind that gradually became clearer. 3 feet and 7 inches underground, a spider the size of a fingernail was fleeing at a rapid speed. It was already 280 feet away. Humph! Suddenly, Su Zimo opened his eyes and lightning flashed through them. Swash! Su Zimo's figure had already vanished from the spot. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived above the rainbow wolf spider. Su Zimo conjured a hand seal and his fingertips danced with unusual agility. Eventually, it turned into a gigantic palm print that enveloped the rainbow wolf spider's escape route. Ma! At the same time, Su Zimo opened his mouth and uttered a Sanskrit word. The demon subduing seal was released together with the damning mantra. The rainbow wolf spider that was initially fleeing through the soil shuddered. Rumble! A gigantic palm descended from the sky, blotting out the sky and covering the sun. It carried with it an aura that could destroy the world and suppress everything as it descended. The giant hand had yet to truly touch the ground. A huge palm print had already appeared on the ground, sinking deep into the soil. The rainbow wolf spider was forced to reveal itself. Could no longer hide. Human! How dare you take my life? The rainbow wolf spider roared. My rainbow wolf spider clan has a demon emperor. Do you want to die? Demon emperor? Su Zimo sneered. Do you know what kind of existence the demon emperor is? Why would he intervene for a mere spirit demon like you? Furthermore, this is the primordial battlefield. Here I am the emperor." As soon as these words were spoken, heaven and earth rumbled. Who would dare to say such words? Suzimo's body emitted a monstrous aura. The demon-subduing seals might become even more ferocious as it pressed down. Creak creak. Knowing that it had no chance of escaping, the rainbow wolf spider shrieked and circulated its blood chi furiously. Its body expanded, and in the blink of an eye, it was 100 feet tall. Whoosh! Whoosh! A series of colorful spiderwebs shot out from the abdomen of the rainbow wolf spider, enveloping the palm in the air. The poison in the spiderwebs was extremely domineering and sizzled as it corroded the palm formed by the demon-subduing seal. Its spirit light flickered and its strength weakened. Exerting strength with all 8 legs, the rainbow wolf spider bounced up and took the demon-subduing seal head-on in midair. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The demon-subduing seal dissipated gradually. The rainbow wolf spider's body fell heavily to the ground, creating a huge pit. It was covered in injuries and one of its legs was broken, dripping with green blood that gave off a nauseating stench. Not bad, Suzimo nodded. You have some capabilities to be able to receive that demon-subduing seal. The rainbow wolf spider struggled to crawl out of the pit. With bloodshot eyes and a menacing expression, it charged towards Suzimo. The remaining 7 spider legs were like sharp spears that were tainted with deadly poison. There were even spikes on the surface of the spider legs. If those spikes were to pierce into flesh and pull them out, they would tear out a huge chunk of flesh and leave a bloody hole. Shoo! 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 Looking down from above, the rainbow wolf spider extended its legs and stabbed down at Suzimo's head repeatedly in a dense rain. Suzimo's gaze was cold and blood quencher in his hands trembled. Clang! Clang! A blood beam burst forth. Suzimo released his movement technique and shuttled through the chaotic spear shadows. Channeling his blood chi, he swung blood quencher and slashed down viciously at the joints of the rainbow wolf spider's legs. Exclamation point! Green blood gushed out from the wound. A total of 3 spider legs were severed by Suzimo. Apart from the spiderwebs, the rainbow wolf spider's legs were another weapon on its body that could even fight against perfect-grade spirit weapons. However, Suzimo's slash was aimed at the joints of the spider legs, the weakest part. Coupled with the sharpness of blood quencher, that single slash crippled 3 of the rainbow wolf spider's legs. Ah! The rainbow wolf spider let out a heart-wrenching shriek in pain. If you dare to suck her blood, I'll sever all 8 of your legs. Suzimo's gaze was cold without any bit of pity. He was indebted to the old immortal Crane of Misty Peak, and Little Crane had accompanied him for a long time in his cave abode. In Suzimo's heart, Monkey, Linghu and Little Crane were already family. If he had not turned back earlier on, Little Crane would have been consigned to eternal damnation if she was taken away by the rainbow wolf spider. It would have been too late for regrets. At the thought of that, Suzimo felt a sense of trepidation. Shoo! Shoo! The rainbow wolf spider only had 4 legs left, which were still able to support its body. Break! At that moment, it roared and severed both of its legs, transforming them into 2 spears that tore through the air at an extremely fast speed towards Suzimo. Petty tricks! Suzimo sneered and wielded blood quencher in reverse. Like a ripple, he sent the 2 spider legs flying. The rainbow wolf spider was in complete despair. The many killing moves that it had used to dominate the demon region were nothing in front of this human. How could such a frightening monster incarnate be born from the human race? Before the rainbow wolf spider could finish its thought, its vision blurred and its green robes fluttered. Before it could react, it felt a sharp pain all over its body. Its remaining 2 spider legs had been chopped off. Thump! Without any support, the rainbow wolf spider fell to the ground. Due to the severe loss of blood chi, its body shrunk continuously and before long, it was the size of a human. Slumped in the mud, the rainbow wolf spider glared at Suzimo with a venomous gaze. He casually took out a rope from his storage bag and tossed it at the rainbow wolf spider's body, coiling it a few times around its body. After the battle in the ancient city, he had collected tens of thousands of storage bags. There were way too many spirit weapons in his storage bag and he could casually take one out. Furthermore, all of them were supreme-grade spirit weapons. I'll leave your life for Little Crane. Zimo dragged the rainbow wolf spider and sped back the way he came. Chapter 672. The battlefield had already quietened down, and all that was left was a charred ground. Soaring serpents rose into the air and lava raged, burning everything within 100 miles. The aura of a divine being was not only suppressing the rainbow wolf spiders, but other demon beasts as well. The rainbow wolf spiders were all burned to death. The remaining demon beasts broke free from the control of the rainbow wolf spiders and fled as well. The beast stampede retreated, leaving behind a ground of corpses and some of the wreckage that was still emitting smoke. Monkey, Linghu and the golden lion were covered in injuries and panted heavily. Monkey Linghu, thank you. Little Crane spoke in human tongue and extended her long and slender beak, rubbing Monkey and Linghu's cheeks gently. It's nothing. Monkey grinned and waved it off, pointing to Linghu at the side. That perverted tiger was the first to notice the problem. We only realized that something was amiss when he kept muttering along the way. Linghu was so happy that he was about to float when he sensed Little Crane's affectionate actions. However, when he heard Monkey mention the word perverted tiger, Linghu had an awkward expression and coughed gently to divert Little Crane's attention. Little Crane was a little confused. Monkey snickered. The golden lion and Little Fox knew the reason and smiled knowingly as well. Linghu patted his chest and said, although I've never seen you in human form before, I recognized you right away when I saw those beautiful eyes of yours. Humph, humph. You were staring at her long legs. Since when did you look at her eyes? Monkey pouted and mumbled softly. Linghu glared at Monkey and said hurriedly, Little Crane, don't listen to his nonsense. Linghu looked at Little Crane affectionately and was brewing his emotions, as though he wanted to say something. After a long time, Little Crane was getting goosebumps from being stared at. Suddenly Linghu shouted, The golden lion and Little Fox were caught off guard and jumped in fright. They looked at Linghu in confusion, wondering what was wrong with him. Monkey rolled his eyes. Linghu continued, Your eyes are so beautiful like the stars, like the moon, like the sun, like the Golden lion was speechless. The Little Fox was petrified. The monkey was dumbfounded, feeling as if it had been struck by lightning. Was Linghu composing a poem? Not to mention how lousy the poem was, it actually got stuck halfway through. Monkey stretched out his hand, wanting to send Linghu flying. However, just now that he had just fought a huge battle, he really couldn't muster up any strength. The monkey let out a long sigh and could only cover his face and turn around. He really didn't want to look at Linghu. He felt that he couldn't afford to lose face. Linghu looked embarrassed and scratched his head. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind and he shouted, It looks like the big gem in the deep sea. The spirit tiger shook its head proudly and laughed foolishly, intoxicated by its own success. In his opinion, the last sentence was the finishing touch. It was a brilliant literary talent. Little Crane felt goosebumps all over her body and shuddered subconsciously. How is it, Little Crane? Linghu closed in and licked his tiger face. Little Crane glanced at Linghu and said coldly, Are you in heat? Little Fox could not help but burst into laughter. Monkey and the golden lion were laughing happily at the sight as well. Linghu had not expected Little Crane's words to be so sharp and direct. He could not handle it at all and was so embarrassed that his tiger face flushed red, wishing that there was a hole in the ground to hide in. Right then a person tore through the air from afar. Behind him was a rope, and at the end of the rope was a spider with 8 broken legs. It was the original body of the colorful robed man. Little Crane's eyes were filled with endless rage and her body was trembling. Are you all right? Descending before everyone, Zimo took out a bunch of elixirs from his storage bag. There were all sorts of things for consumption and external application. Right now, he did not lack any of those things. Monkey and Linghu applied the elixir silently while paying attention to Little Crane. Little Crane rushed to the colorful robed man and stomped heavily on his body, questioning, You said that you saw a man who looked like me at the Thousand Spiders Sand Dune. Is that true? The colorful robed man was already severely injured to begin with. Now that Little Crane stomped on him, his organs were shaken and he coughed out a mouthful of blood, panting. Of course it's true. Little Crane asked hurriedly with a nervous expression. Where is he? Is that Bai Feng your father? Knowing that he had no chance of survival, the colorful robed man laughed gloatingly. What a pity. You'll never be able to see him again. He's long dead. Ha 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 ha. Little Crane shuddered and her face turned ghastly pale instantly. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. The Bai Feng was a ferocious bird of the primordial era. It was extremely strong and controlled fire. It was one of the most terrifying species of ferocious birds. However, the phoenix race was way too terrifying among ferocious birds. They were the kings of all birds and could control fire as well. That was the reason why the Bai Feng was not too famous. However, in reality, the true strength of the Bai Feng was not inferior to the soaring serpent, a god of fire. Su Zimo had long noticed that Little Crane's appearance was different from ordinary cranes. Ordinary cranes merely had vermilion on their heads and snow-white bodies. However, Little Crane's body was covered in emerald green feathers and was extremely beautiful. If she had the bloodline of the Bai Feng, then everything would make sense. A Bai Feng's body was emerald green in color. Su Zimo lamented internally. No wonder I've never seen Little Crane's father nor heard the old immortal Crane mention him. So, he met with an accident long ago. I don't believe it. Little Crane shook her head repeatedly and glared at the colorful robed man, asking with a trembling voice, why you're lying, right? Lying? The colorful robed man laughed bitterly. Your father had a death wish by barging into the Thousand Spiders sand dune with his capabilities. My rainbow wolf spider race has long sucked his blood dry. It's just nice that we can eat his flesh and drink his blood to cultivate, ha ha ha. Little Crane's blood chi was already weak to begin with. Now that she received such a blow, she felt her vision darken and her head spin. Sister Little Crane. Little Fox hurried forward and supported Little Crane. Bang! Suddenly, a slap landed on the colorful robed man's head, shattering it into pieces and causing brain juice to splatter all over the ground. Ling Hu flung his palm and grumbled, how noisy. Why are you still freaking laughing when you're so ugly? I've tolerated you for so long. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief. He could tell that Ling Hu did that because he did not want Little Crane to suffer any more blows. In reality, even if Ling Hu did not make a move, he would have made a move. It was clear that the colorful robed man had no intention of living, and was trying his best to agitate Little Crane with his words. His intentions were murderous. Su Zimo patted Little Crane on the shoulder gently and consoled, don't let your thoughts run wild. This spider knows that he's going to die and is clearly spouting nonsense. Things might not be as you think. Little Crane nodded, but the sorrow in her eyes could not be concealed. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 673. Sensing the sorrow in Little Crane's heart, Ling Hu scratched his ears and cheeks. He wanted to share her burden but did not know what to say. Nobody knew how to console her over something as such. The atmosphere turned heavy. Ling Hu looked at Su Zimo, hoping that the latter would say something. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo decided to divert Little Crane's attention first and asked, Little Crane, why did you enter the intermediate ancient battlefield? Although the old immortal Crane had already broken through 20 years ago, and became a high-level fiend demon that was equivalent to the Dharma characteristic realm of the human race, it was most likely impossible for her to open up a spatial node to the intermediate ancient battlefield on her own. As though she recalled something, Little Crane's expression changed and she reverted to her human form. Hurriedly, she grabbed Su Zimo's arm and said anxiously, Save Nian Qi. You've got to think of a way to save Nian Qi. Su Zimo's heart sank as he took a deep breath. What's going on? Don't panic, tell me slowly. Nian Qi was a little girl he picked up, in the capital of Great Zhou. And there were many secrets in her body. For example, Nian Qi was immensely strong even before she started cultivating. For example, he could not sense the passage of time on Nian Qi's body. Or rather, the passage of time was extremely slow. This meant that Nian Qi's lifespan was extremely long. At the very least, it was much longer than people of the same cultivation realm. Even so, Su Zimo did not suspect Nian Qi at all. Everyone had their secrets. Furthermore, she was only a child with a pure heart. Be it towards him or Misty Peak, she had no ill intentions. During the battle at Misty Peak, Nianqi gave it her all and almost died. It was clear that this child already viewed Misty Peak as her home. Little Crane said, "This time round, the patriarch of the Great Zhou dynasty came forward and sought you out, mother, wanting to work together to open up a spatial node. This ancestor is a Dharma Dao Jun. Unfortunately, his qi and blood have deteriorated and his lifespan is nearing its end. Therefore, he decided to use a secret method to burn the last of his lifespan, erupting with power and joining forces with Mother to open a spatial node. However, this teleportation channel is extremely narrow and can only teleport 2 people. This ancestor of the Great Zhou dynasty has given both places to Misty Peak." Upon hearing this, Su Zimo raised his eyebrows slightly. This move was equivalent to giving Misty Peak a huge gift with his life. The actions of the Patriarch of Great Zhou were definitely up to something. Little Crane continued, "The Patriarch of Great Zhou knew that his lifespan was nearing its end and was worried that the Great Zhou dynasty would face a calamity after his death. As such, he wanted to use this gift in exchange for the protection of Mother and Misty Peak." After the battle at Misty Peak, the other 4 sects had suffered great losses. Even void reversions had perished. Although Misty Peak suffered heavy casualties as well, the disciples who survived would definitely have a bright future. Furthermore, with this battle, the old immortal Crane extended her lifespan and entered the Dharma characteristic realm, breaking free from the shackles of heaven and earth. Her lifespan increased immensely, and she was no longer threatened by her lifespan. Misty Peak became the leader of the 5 major sects with a single leap. Their strength surpassed the other 4 major sects, and there were more and more cultivators who wanted to join Misty Peak. In the past 20 years, Misty Peak had already become the #1 sect in the territory of Great Zhou. It was not hard to understand why the Patriarch of Great Zhou would make such a decision. Little Crane looked at Su Zimo and continued, "Mother told me that the reason why the throne of Great Zhou was given to Ji Yaoshua was partly because of your potential. At the same time, it was also because of your relationship with Ji Yaoshua and the fact that you have Misty Peak backing you." Su Zimo nodded. He had long guessed that as well. According to etiquette, the inheritance of the throne was passed down to the first wife and the first wife. No matter what, it would not have landed on Ji Yaoshua. Furthermore, she was a woman. Eventually, the fact that the throne of Great Zhou was passed down to Ji Yaoshua, and that the throne was not abolished despite the internal and external troubles of Great Zhou for the past 20 years was definitely not the decision of the Emperor of Great Zhou alone. Now, it seemed like the Patriarch of Great Zhou was backing this as well. All of this made sense. It had to be said that the Patriarch of Great Zhou was truly scheming. Furthermore, he had made the right bet. The fact that the old immortal Crane sent Little Crane in meant that she had already agreed to this matter. Although he was dead, he still paved the way for Great Zhou before his death, by finding a Dharma characteristic expert to protect them. As for where Great Zhou would end up in the future, that was not something he could control. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he asked, "Senior Crane sent you and Nianqi in for 2 spots?" Yes, Little Crane nodded. There are more cultivators joining Misty Peak, and the strength of the sect has increased. However, there are many problems as well. Be it elixirs, weapons, cultivation techniques or spirit arts, we can no longer supply them. Mother and the Patriarch place great importance on the opening of the ancient battlefield this time round, and want to make use of it to strengthen the foundation of the sect. Although Nianqi joined the sect late, she's already the #1 of the Jindan realm in the sect right now. In fact, the Patriarch even said that she might be able to fight with you. Mother also said that Nianqi's Jindan phenomenon might be able to fight for the top 10 of the Jindan phenomenon ranking. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. The fact that there was a chance of fighting for the top 10 of the phenomenon ranking was enough to shock him. The Patriarch and Ling Yun were already at the void reversion realm. Coupled with the old immortal Crane, the fact that they were able to give such an evaluation was proof of Nianqi's strength. Of course, Su Zimo had been hiding at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley for 20 years, and there was no way the old immortal Crane and the Patriarch and Ling Yun would know of his strength. Nobody had witnessed it for themselves either. Little Crane seemed to have recalled something as a look of fear flashed through her eyes. Not long after we entered the ancient battlefield, we met 7 people, 6 men and a woman. They were way too strong. The strength of those 7 people was way too strong. Little Crane emphasized repeatedly. It was clear how shocked she was at that time. These people look at everything with a condescending indifference. But the moment they see Nianqi, there's something wrong with their eyes. Nianqi's expression turned terrible when she saw those people as well. At that time we were holding hands and her palms were cold and sweaty. At that point Su Zimo and the others could not help but feel nervous. Little Crane continued thereafter. The 7 of them looked at Nianqi with strange expressions and walked over. Nianqi said to me, "Don't ask anything, hurry and run before going up to them." Pausing for a moment, Little Crane gulped and continued. Nianqi rushed up and released his Jindan phenomenon. However, it was shattered by a single punch from the leader of the other party. "Ah!" Little Fox exclaimed. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and asked instead, "Destroyed Nianqi's Jindan phenomenon with a single punch?" "Yes." Little Crane nodded with certainty. Su Zimo had a grim expression. According to the old immortal Crane, Nianqi's Jindan phenomenon had a chance of making it into the top 10 of the Jindan phenomenon ranking. In other words, Nianqi's Jindan phenomenon was definitely not inferior to his soaring serpent and divine turtle phenomenons. However, that terrifying Jindan phenomenon was destroyed with a single punch. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. Even he might not be able to produce such a powerful burst of power. Suddenly, Su Zimo realized that the ancient battlefield this time round was even more frightening than he had imagined. Chapter 674. Nianqi did not last more than 3 moves against that person. At that time I was truly scared out of my wits and the only thing left in my head was Nianqi's voice telling me to run. Little Crane's eyes were filled with guilt and self-blame as she lowered her head. I know that I'm a coward for not choosing to fight alongside Nianqi. However, I didn't even have the courage to fight against those people. I fled with all my might with only a single thought in mind, to find you and tell you about this. However, I didn't manage to escape far before I fell into the hands of the rainbow wolf spiders. Ling Hu consoled hurriedly, "It's not your fault. You can't beat them either. If it was me, I would have fled as well." Su Zimo patted Little Crane on the back of her hand gently. "You did the right thing. If you were truly hot-headed and fought against those people, you would only have lost your life for nothing. Furthermore, it's fortunate that you managed to escape. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known about you guys." Little Crane's expression softened slightly. Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo asked, "Did those people harm Nianqi?" "No." Little Crane shook her head. "The leader merely captured Nianqi alive, and said that he would seek punishment from the elders. I didn't catch the rest." At that point Little Crane sighed. "The reason why I was able to escape wasn't because they couldn't catch up to me. It was because they didn't take me seriously at all. I'll never forget the way they looked at me. It was as though they were looking at an ant. Who would care about an ant that escaped?" After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo suddenly asked, "What did they look like?" Little Crane replied, "The 7 of them were dressed in extremely ancient attire. All of them had golden hair, green eyes and straight noses. They were extremely handsome and easy to recognize." When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. In that case, Nianqi's appearance was rather similar to those people. During the battle at Misty Peak, Nianqi had once unleashed his potential, and his strength had skyrocketed. His originally withered and yellow hair had also become as straight as a waterfall. His golden hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were blue. His magnificence was unparalleled, and he was like an inviolable deity. Nianqi's background was definitely related to these people. But where did these people come from? Su Zimo couldn't say. However, he had a vague guess in his heart. Judging from those people's attitudes, Nianqi shouldn't be in any danger for the time being. Su Zimo looked at the worried Little Crane and said gently, "Don't worry, leave this to me." "Yes." Little Crane nodded. If there was anyone in the primordial battlefield who could save Nianqi, it would probably be Su Zimo. "Let's go. Let's leave this place first and find a place to rest." Monkey, the Ling Hu and the Golden Lion were injured. Although they consumed many elixirs, they had to rest for a couple of days before they could recover fully. For the next couple of days, Suzimo and the others were not in a hurry to travel. Instead, they stayed in a cave for a couple of days. They had already stayed in the primordial battlefield for more than a month. Coupled with the rich spirit chi and the previous battle, Suzimo's Jindan realm loosened, and he finally sensed an opportunity to break through. Within his dantian above the Siraka flower, a dazzling golden core was circulating slowly. The aura within the Jindan was extremely complex. There was the aura of the immortal and fiend Tao. Those two auras were initially opposing each other. However, there was an additional aura of the Buddhist monasteries within the Jindan, forming a buffer that fused the immortal and fiend Taos together perfectly. Suzimo assumed a lotus position with his eyes closed and his black hair swayed without any wind. On his left, mist rose and the phantom of a divine turtle appeared. On his right, flames burned and the phantom of a soaring serpent descended. Gradually, as time passed by, the aura within Suzimo's body turned increasingly terrifying. It lasted until water and fire fused and the turtle and serpent coiled. The entire void trembled. A shuddering aura burst forth from Suzimo's body like a visible ripple that spread through the cave. Monkey and the others were alarmed and hurriedly hid, watching from the entrance of the cave. Wherever the ripple extended, countless gravel would be reduced to nothingness. It was as though the entire cave was sliced apart by a sharp blade. Rumble! Boom! The entire mountain quaked. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Boom! A deafening sound seemed to have echoed from Suzimo's body. Two divine lights shone within the cave. Opening his eyes, Suzimo bolted upright and howled into the skies. His howl was loud and pierced through metal and stone. Right in front of Monkey and the others, Suzimo spat out a stream of air that pierced through the stone wall above his head like a flying sword. His breath was like a sword. This was the limit of perfected being Jindan. Success. At this point of his cultivation, Suzimo was already at the perfected Jindan realm. With another step, he would be at the nascent soul realm and cultivate the legendary essence spirit to control dermic powers. That cultivation speed was not considered top-notch. However, Suzimo cultivated both immortality and demonic. It was already rather rare for him to be able to reach this stage despite that. Suzimo's Jindan gradually faded and his aura was retracted. Peace returned to the cave. Over the past few days, Monkey and the others had made breakthroughs in their cultivation realms as well, and were almost at the perfected inner core realm. They had been by Suzimo's side and devoured the flesh and blood with the strongest life essence. Coupled with the elixirs, it was only logical that they would be able to cultivate to this point. For the past few days, Little Crane was still in low spirits. It was not only because she was worried about Nian Qi. The greater reason was because she heard about the death of her kin. Suzimo could empathize with that feeling. Ling Hu accompanied Little Crane the entire day, racking his brains to please her but to no avail. This day, as though he had thought of something, Ling Hu was extremely excited and shouted in front of everyone, "Hey, hey, hey! I've got a suggestion." Pausing for a moment, Ling Hu took a deep breath and said seriously, "Let's become sworn siblings." Sworn siblings? Monkey's eyes lit up. All of them had an extremely deep relationship with one another. Although the Golden Lion and Little Fox joined later, they had already integrated into the group after spending the past few days together. Furthermore, be it Little Fox or Golden Lion, both of them had already received everyone's acknowledgement after the battle in the ancient city. Naturally, the Golden Lion was elated. Little Fox would not decline as well. After becoming sworn siblings, it would be even more logical for her to follow Suzimo. Little Crane was invigorated when she heard that suggestion. Looking at Monkey, Ling Hu and the others, her eyes regained some luster. Suzimo nodded to himself. Although Ling Hu seemed carefree, this suggestion was not bad. The reason why Little Crane was sad was because she had lost her kin. However, after becoming sworn siblings, it would mean that she would have a few more kin. Monkey pondered for a moment and looked at Suzimo, saying hesitantly, "Don't join us. You're a human after all. If you become sworn siblings with us, you'll definitely face a lot of trouble in the future." Ha 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 ha. Suzimo burst into laughter. "Monkey, am I, Suzimo, someone who's afraid of everything? While it's true that I'm a human, I insist on becoming sworn siblings with you guys. I'll accept all the trouble that comes my way. Alright, let's do it together then. Monkey was filled with pride as well. Alright. Ling Hu cheered. At that moment, nobody realized that a seemingly simple oath in this corner of the ancient battlefield would, to a certain extent, determine the future of Tianhuang mainland. Chapter 675. As Monkey had said, Su Zimo would never be able to explain himself once he became sworn siblings with them. However, Su Zimo did not care. The reason why he cultivated was so that he could repay his debts of gratitude and revenge. There was no way he would be restrained by the so-called righteous and evil, immortal and fiend, etiquette and doctrines. If he wanted to establish his Tao, he had to have the boldness to break through all restraints and rules. Ling Hu said, since we're sworn siblings, there should be one more person even though he's not here. Little Crane asked, Little Night Spirit, right? Ling Hu nodded hurriedly and wagged his tail, praising, Little Crane, you're really smart. Little Crane blushed slightly and kicked Ling Hu with her long legs. After I condensed my inner core, my mother gave me a name, Ching Ching. Little Crane had the bloodline of the Bai Fong, and looked different from other immortal cranes. Her feathers were slightly green. That was a fitting name. The little fox called out obediently, Sister Ching Ching. Yes, Ching Ching nodded and hugged little fox to her side. Although this was the first time they were meeting, they were already as close as sisters after spending the past few days together. Who is this little night spirit that you guys are talking about? Little fox asked curiously. A look of reminiscence flashed through Su Zimo's eyes as he lamented. That's a little beast that I picked up in Songlang Mountain Range more than 20 years ago. It's about time that he grew up. At the mention of Night Spirit, Monkey, Ling Hu and Little Crane revealed concerned expressions. After all, they were the ones who witnessed the birth and growth of Night Spirit back at Misty Peak. Night Spirit was picky with his food and would not touch the flesh of ordinary demon beasts. In order to feed Night Spirit, Monkey, the Spirit Tiger and Little Crane fought their way through the desolate forest and were covered in injuries. They brought back many pieces of meat and fed them to Night Spirit one after another. Although that period of time was tough and dangerous, they were extremely happy to see Night Spirit grow up bit by bit. Everything felt worth it. Night Spirit had just been born and was very obedient. He knew who was good to him. Although his claws were extremely sharp, he had never revealed them to Monkey, the Ling Hu and Little Crane. It's been so many years since I've seen that little brat. I wonder how he looks like now and if he can still recognize us. It was rare for Monkey to be sentimental. After the incident at Dongling Valley, Su Zimo and Night Spirit fled far away and hid in the capital of Great Zhou. Monkey and the others had never seen Night Spirit again. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 years had passed. Su Zimo gazed into the distance and murmured softly, 20 years ago, Night Spirit accompanied Xiaoning to Elixir Yang sect of the Middle Continent. I wonder if I'll be able to meet them in the intermediate ancient battlefield. Is there a problem with adding Night Spirit? Ling Hu asked. Monkey and Ching Ching nodded. Little Fox naturally had no objections as well. She was satisfied as long as she could bring Su Zimo along. The Golden Lion was a little confused and did not know what Night Spirit was either. When he saw that everyone agreed, he shrugged as well, indicating that he did not mind. Ling Hu rolled his eyes and coughed gently. Since we're sworn siblings, we have to rank based on seniority. We can't mess up the seniority in the future, right? Monkey sneered and could tell what Ling Hu was thinking right away. He asked coldly, why? You want to be the boss? No. Ling Hu was so scared that he shuddered and waved it off hurriedly with an embarrassed smile. How can I? Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't have the guts. Including Night Spirit, there were a total of 7 of them. There were both humans and demons. If they were to rank based on age alone, it would definitely be messy. What are your thoughts? Hurry and say it. Ching Ching extended her long leg and kicked Ling Hu once more. Ling Hu was not annoyed. Instead, he was delighted and said excitedly, the reason why we're all gathered together is because of Su Zimo. He's the only candidate for the position of Big Brother. Furthermore, he's the strongest. That's without a doubt. Everyone nodded. Monkey had no objections as well. He had a wild nature and would only have no objections if Su Zimo was ranked ahead of him. Su Zimo smiled indifferently and did not interrupt, merely listening to Ling Hu's arrangements. Ling Hu was invigorated and wagged his tail, looking at Monkey with a fawning smile. Only Brother Monkey is qualified for the second position. Firstly, Brother Monkey is the first to know Big Brother and is the most experienced. Secondly, apart from Big Brother, he's probably the strongest among us. When he heard that, Monkey was satisfied and grinned. Naturally, Ching Ching, Little Fox and Golden Lion did not have any objections either. Actually, Ling Hu wanted to be second as well. However, once he took that position, he would most likely be tortured to death by Monkey. Ling Hu thought about it and decided against it. Ling Hu took a deep breath of air and cleared his throat. With a solemn expression, he said in a deep voice, "It's my turn to take the third position. I've known Big Brother for a long time and there's nothing to say about my strength." Ling Hu patted his chest and declared confidently. That was his true intention. With that seniority, he would be able to bully those behind him in the future. Of course, he could not bully Ching Ching. Little Fox was protected by Su Zimo and could not be touched as well. Forget about Night Spirit. With that, only Golden Retriever was left. Over the past few days, Golden Lion had finally fought for a better name for itself against the strong protests of Yellow Fur to Golden Retriever. At the very least, with the word golden, it did not bring shame to the bloodline of the Golden Lion race. Ling Hu glared at Golden Lion and smirked maliciously. In this way, Ching Ching was naturally ranked fourth. There was no dispute about the first four positions. When it came to the fifth position, Golden Lion could not take it anymore. According to Ling Hu's arrangement, Night Spirit should be fifth. After all, after Monkey, Ling Hu and Ching Ching, Night Spirit was acquainted with Su Zimo. However, how could Golden Lion know who Night Spirit was? It was definitely indignant that it was placed in front by a little beast that it had never seen before. However, right after, it was suppressed mercilessly by Monkey, Ling Hu and Ching Ching. Its protests were ineffective. Little Fox was 6. Golden Lion hid in a corner with a livid expression. There were palm prints on its face and a few footprints on its body. With tears brimming in its eyes, it had a resentful expression and no longer spoke. Ling Hu looked at Golden Lion and laughed. "Golden Retriever, are you happy that you're 7th? The Golden Lion grit its teeth in hatred when it saw Ling Hu's smug expression. Monkey teased, "Golden Retriever, it's fine. If there are any brothers that join us in the future, they'll be ranked behind you. Brother Golden Retriever, although I'm ranked before you, I won't bully you," Little Fox said with a serious expression. Golden Lion wanted to cry but no tears came out. To be fair, he truly could not afford to offend the people in front of him. Although Little Fox was the weakest, it had Su Zimo's protection after all. The more he thought about it, the more indignant he felt. "I wonder who Night Spirit is. It's best if you don't let me meet you. Otherwise, I'll definitely teach you a lesson and make you give up the 5th position obediently. A nameless little beast wants to sit on my head? Humph." Golden Lion rubbed its palms and grumbled internally. Chapter 676. Apart from Su Zimo, the 7 of them were all demons. They were carefree and did not pay attention to the messy rituals. After that suggestion, everyone lit incense and bowed to the heavens as sworn brothers. After this incident, everyone became closer. Ching Ching's mood also improved a lot. Ling Hu followed behind Ching Ching every day, fawning over her. With Ling Hu around, there was naturally much laughter along the way. This day they arrived at a barren plain. Su Zimo's expression changed and he paused in his tracks, listening intently. Among the 7 of them, Su Zimo's 5 senses were the strongest and were a level higher than the other 6. Most of the time, Su Zimo was the first to notice anything. "Bro, what's wrong?" the Golden Lion asked. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, "There's quite a commotion in the east. There seems to be quite a number of people. Not only are there cultivators, there are also faint roars of demon beasts." Right then the ground trembled slightly. Dong! 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 A series of sounds could be vaguely heard from the east, as though someone was beating a heavenly drum. The next moment, A bedazzling light surged into the air and illuminated the world. A treasure had appeared. The reason why the major factions and sects of Tianhuang mainland sent cultivators to this place with all their might was because there were many cave abodes left behind by their predecessors in the ancient battlefield. There were also some legacy lands, many ancient secret realms, and even many great tombs that contained countless rare treasures. For example, some cultivation methods, secret techniques, divine weapons, and secret treasures. Anyone who obtained one of them would be able to soar into the sky and transform into a dragon. Even if they did not need them, they could offer them to their sects in exchange for rich rewards. Some powers and sects could very well rise because of this opportunity. They would go from being small and nameless sects to laying down their foundations and becoming a great power that could dominate a region. In fact, there was even a high chance that they could become one of the 108 upper sects. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and whispered, "Let's go and take a look over there." With that said, Su Zimo sped off in a flash. Monkey and the rest followed closely behind. Not long after, Su Zimo gradually slowed down and looked over. Not far ahead, there was a huge mountain peak that towered into the clouds. There were many cultivators surrounding the mountain. At the top and bottom of the mountain, countless demonic beasts were roaring. An intense conflict broke out between the cultivators and the demons. In midair, spiritual energy surged, bursting out with visible halos and waves of air. Countless ancient trees were snapped, and gravel flew everywhere. This battle lasted for an unknown amount of time. The mountain peak was already dyed red with blood. It was extremely tragic. Su Zimo could clearly see that there was something strange about the mountain. It was split open from the middle, as if it had been torn apart by a pair of invisible hands. In the middle of the mountain there was no mountain rock. Instead, there was a huge palace built there. It didn't look like it was built by human hands. It could be said to be the work of the gods. The palace was already riddled with holes, and there were many ancient weapons placed inside. There were also many elixirs and miraculous medicines, and some ancient books covered in dust. Su Zimo whispered, "This is the appearance of an ancestor's cave abode. Two major factions are fighting for the treasures inside. The battlefield is too chaotic. There's no way to see what's inside." Monkey frowned. "If we barge in now, we'll definitely be targeted." Little Fox's eyes darted around and she whispered, "There's no telling how many cultivators and ferocious beasts are lying in ambush nearby, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Let's wait a little longer. If there's no treasure worth fighting for, let's not get involved in this mess." Su Zimo had a calm expression. The palace was hidden in the middle of the mountain peak and did not seem simple. However, Su Zimo was not in a hurry either. It would not be too late to strike if there was truly a treasure that appeared. Boom! A human paragon released his Jin Dan phenomenon and collided heavily against a few ferocious beasts. The power spread and the entire palace shook. Many weapons were affected by the chaotic power and scattered in midair. The human paragon's eyes lit up as he grabbed one of the swords and injected spirit energy into it. The sword shone brightly and shone with 5 spirit patterns. It was a perfect grade spirit weapon. Slash! The human paragon hollered and waved his sword. A blazing sword beam tore through the air like a rainbow and sliced the bodies of a few ferocious beasts opposite him into two, causing a blood mist to fill the air. "Haha, good sword." The human prodigy was overjoyed. With that sword, his strength would increase tremendously, and his chances of fighting for a spot on the Jin Dan phenomenon ranking would increase as well. Many other cultivators were attacking as well, snatching the weapons that were scattered in midair. Su Zimo could clearly see that the lowest grade of the weapons was supreme grade, and there were even more than 10 perfect grade spirit weapons. There were so many treasures in a single palace. For most cultivators, an additional supreme grade spirit weapon would increase their strength. An additional perfect grade spirit weapon would increase their strength by a level. However, be it supreme grade or perfect grade spirit weapons, none of them could catch Su Zimo's attention right now. His main objective for this trip was to see if there were any high-grade dermic weapons. It was not only for himself but for Monkey and the others as well. Although Monkey and the others were demons, they could refine their own dermic weapons after breaking through their inner cores and cultivating their essence spirits. It would be best if they could obtain a suitable dermic weapon before they advanced to nascent soul realm. Boom! There was another deafening sound. One of the walls of the palace collapsed and many weapons that were scattered on it bounced up. It was clear that those weapons were different from spirit weapons. They floated in the void without any fluctuations caused by spirit energy, and the patterns on them were even more intricate and intricate. Dermic weapons. There were dermic weapons in this palace. Look, there are 2 dermic patterns on that flying sword. It's a middle-grade dermic weapon. For perfected being Jean Dan and many spirit demons, a middle-grade dermic weapon was enough to make them envious. This meant that they would possess a middle-grade dermic weapon the moment they advanced to nascent soul realm. 3 dermic patterns. It's a superior-grade dermic weapon. Attack! A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. A scarlet spear floated in midair. There were actually 3 dermic patterns on it. Boom! A gigantic demon beast soared into the air. It resembled a tiger but had a pair of wings on its back. It had a menacing gaze and exuded a boundless ferocious aura. One of the 4 ancient ferocious beasts, Cheong-Chi. The golden lion said slowly with a grim expression. Even among pure-blooded ferocious beasts, there were differences in strength. For example, the legendary 4 ancient ferocious beasts were far stronger than other ferocious beasts. The moment Cheong-Chi appeared, it opened its mouth and devoured a cultivator who had released Jean Dan's phenomenon. It chewed the cultivator into pieces within a few bites and swallowed him into its stomach, causing blood to flow from the corner of its mouth. It was way too savage and even Jean Dan's phenomenon could not defend against it. Raging city blaze. A loud roar sounded from the flat ground. A human paragon wearing a blazing robe charged into the battlefield and a gigantic ancient city appeared behind him. Within the ancient city, flames burned furiously and surged into the skies, incinerating all living beings. The ancient city descended and suppressed another pure-blooded ferocious beast into a bloody paste. Instantly, it was incinerated into ashes by the flames without a corpse left. This was a paragon of Blaze Columbus Valley, one of the 10 upper sects of the North region. A superior-grade dermic weapon was born. More paragons and ferocious beasts charged into the battlefield. End of chapter. Chapter 677. Should we head up and fight for it? Ling Hu was raring to go and his eyes shone with excitement. There's no need for that. Su Zimo had a calm expression and his eyes shone as he said in a deep voice, although superior-grade perfected Lord dermic weapons are decent, they're not worth us taking the risk and getting involved in this mess. In the ancient battlefield, even Dao Lord dermic weapons and mighty figure dermic weapons had long fallen to the level of perfected Lord dermic weapons without the tempering of their essence spirits and the baptism of time. Their dermic powers had dissipated. The only difference was that their dermic patterns were still present and their grades did not change. Therefore, even if dermic weapons were to appear here, most of them would be perfected Lord dermic weapons. Let's go, let's leave this place first. Su Zimo waved his hand and prepared to leave with Monkey and the others. You're thinking of leaving after coming here? A gigantic ferocious bird spread its wings and covered the skies, emitting a torrential demonic chi. With a sharp gaze, it swooped down and extended its sharp claws towards Little Fox. Foxes were all natural seductresses. Unless they had a strong backing, they would definitely be fought over by many demon beasts the moment they appeared. Ching Ching raised her brows slightly with a murderous look in her eyes. Without transforming at all, she leaped into the air and crossed her legs, kicking out a series of afterimages in midair. Her long legs were like 2 gigantic guillotines that let out a series of explosions in midair. Ching Ching was already rather beautiful in her human form. Coupled with her slender figure, she was truly graceful like a swimming dragon when she leaped. Drip, drip. On the ground, Ling Hu opened his mouth wide and dripped all over the ground. His gaze was dazed as he stuttered. Those long legs seemed to split below the navel. Piak. Monkey sent Ling Hu flying with a backhand slap. Bang! 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 Ching Ching dodged the ferocious bird's sharp claws and hammered the ferocious bird's head with her legs, shattering it instantly. Cuckoo! A golden toad the size of a mountain squatted at the side with widened eyes. Puffing its cheeks, it let out a strange sound that grew louder and louder. It was like thunder rumbling as it rolled past. All of a sudden, the golden toad opened its mouth. A crimson light flashed and directly coiled around the little fox. This was actually the blood tongue of the Golden Toad clan. The speed was too fast and he couldn't see it clearly. This was the Golden Toad clan's greatest killing move. They relied on this method to hunt other demonic beasts. Most demonic beasts couldn't react in time, and would be swallowed by the Golden Toad. The little fox couldn't defend herself against such a move, but there wasn't a trace of panic or fear in her eyes. Any one of the figures standing beside her would be enough to kill the Golden Toad. Pa! Just as the blood tongue was about to touch the little fox, a hairy palm suddenly appeared and grabbed the Golden Toad's blood tongue. The bloody light in the monkey's eyes swirled as he stared at the Golden Toad not far away and grinned. Whoosh! The monkey exerted strength with both hands and tore off the blood tongue, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Boom! Immediately after, Monkey's feet landed on the ground and his body expanded. He walked in front of Gene Toad and swung his huge fist, smashing it down on Gene Toad. The Golden Toad retracted its broken tongue. Its mouth was full of blood and its eyes were filled with hatred. On the surface of its body, fist-sized blood blisters suddenly appeared and grew bigger and bigger. Snap! Suzimo tapped gently with his finger and a bolt of divine thunder descended, striking the Golden Toad's head. The Golden Toad shuddered and the blood blisters on its body burst instantly, emitting thick smoke. The poisonous pus within had already been purified by the thunder. Bang! Monkey's fist smashed heavily on the Golden Toad's head, killing the ferocious beast instantly. More and more demon beasts surged over. Suzimo frowned slightly. Follow me. Let's leave this place first. Before his sentence was finished, Suzimo withdrew Blood Quencher from his storage bag. Bursting with blood chi, he killed his way through the beast horde, carving out a path of blood. When they arrived at the periphery, Suzimo's group turned back. More and more demon beasts and cultivators surged into the vicinity of the mountain peak, fighting for the treasures in a frenzy. This was the ancient battlefield. Opportunities and dangers coexisted. Let's check out elsewhere. There seems to be some changes nearby. Suzimo channeled Heaven Vision and Earth Hearing. After sensing for a while, he pointed in a direction and sped off with everyone. Before long, everyone came to a stop. Up ahead, in the middle of a swamp, there was also a palace that appeared. There were many spirit pills and miraculous medicines, as well as many weapons floating in midair. Countless cultivators and demon beasts of various factions and sects were fighting in midair, fighting for the weapons and elixirs. Fresh blood dyed the swamp red. Many corpses fell from midair into the swamp and were gradually devoured, vanishing. Suzimo focused his gaze. Among the many weapons hovering in midair, there were some dermic weapons as well. However, the best of them only had 3 dermic patterns and were superior-grade dermic weapons. For most cultivators, superior-grade dermic weapons were worth fighting for. However, after hesitating for a moment, Suzimo held it in and said deeply, "Let's go." Monkey and the others naturally did not have any objections. Everyone sprinted. Before long, everyone caught sight of another cave abode appearing. Another group of sects and factions were fighting here to fight for the treasures left behind in the cave abode. After observing for a while, Suzimo shook his head and left with Monkey and the others. After a day of traveling, everyone went around and around. In this region, they caught sight of more than 10 cave abodes where various factions and sects were fighting. Among them, they even caught sight of disciples of super sects. Strange, Suzimo furrowed his brows slightly. He did not know what happened, but it seemed as though many cave abodes hidden in this region had appeared all of a sudden. As everyone sprinted, the sounds of fighting could be heard ahead once more. It was extremely noisy, accompanied by the roars of demon beasts and chirping of birds. It was another cave abode. The golden lion's gaze flickered as it murmured, "Eh? The rod that those people are fighting for seems to be a supreme-grade dermic weapon with 4 dermic patterns." In midair, 2 groups of cultivators were fighting. On one side, there were only 2 cultivators. On the other side, There were dozens of cultivators with pale faces. The qi around them was extremely heavy and their lips were purplish. They looked like malevolent ghosts from hell. Those cultivators stood motionlessly on the ground and wielded long rods in their hands. They were commanding dozens of lifeless corpses. Every single corpse emitted a pungent stench and shone with a metallic luster. They were invulnerable and no one knew what they were made of. Their fingernails were long and resembled sharp daggers. They shone with a ghastly green glow and were clearly poisonous. It was one of the 5 heretical doctrines, corpse refinement cult. Those corpses were battle corpses created exclusively by corpse refinement cult. They were invulnerable to weapons and possessed immense strength. Filled with poison, they were extremely frightening and troublesome to deal with. The dozens of corpses surrounded the 2 of them and attacked wildly. Chapter 678. Of the 2 of them, one of them was round and short like an airbag. The other person had a buzz cut. He looked dull and simple like an honest farmer. The silly cultivator wielded a slender metal rod in his left hand that was etched with many complicated patterns. Threads that were almost transparent burst forth from the fingertips of his right hand. Chi into threads. That was a secret skill of puppet sect, one of the 5 heretical doctrines. By condensing the spirit chi in one's dantian into threads and wrapping them around the puppets one had refined, one could control the puppets from a distance and use them to fight against enemies. However, the silly cultivator was controlling 5 different puppets at the same time. One of the puppets was extremely heavy and shone with a metallic luster. With every step it took, it would leave a deep footprint on the ground. Every move and every movement was filled with power and strength. The other puppet's body was made of an unknown material. It was almost transparent and looked weak like water, weak and powerless. The puppet's body was penetrated by the battle corpse and its flesh squirmed, mending the wound just now rapidly. The other puppet was scarlet and burned with raging flames. Every single move it made was accompanied by a scorching heat wave that caused the surrounding air to turn extremely dry. The silly cultivator was multitasking and cultivated 5 puppets that were of different elements: metal, wood, water, fire and earth, to form an array formation, and his combat strength increased tremendously. Amazing, the Golden Lion praised. Although most of the members of the demon clan were demons, they had fought with cultivators for a long time and had a rough idea of the cultivator's combat ability. However, although the silly cultivator was strong and could control 5 puppets, he could not defend against the frenzied attacks of dozens of battle corpses. The reason why the 2 of them were able to hold on until now was because of the Jindan phenomenon released by the fatty. It was a turbid yellow river that was mighty and rippled with waves. It emitted endless yin qi, as though it could cleanse and wash away all sins in the world. Many corpses floated in the yellow river. Ooh, ooh. It was as though countless ghosts were struggling and howling. One after another, menacing faces appeared on the surface of the river. The Jindan phenomenon surrounded the 2 of them and protected them in the middle, creating waves that blocked the charging battle corpses. The battle corpses seemed to be rather wary of the yellow river. When the yellow river water splashed onto the battle corpses, sizzling sounds would be heard and green smoke would rise. As though they were sentient, the battle corpses shrieked and retreated, hopping on the spot. The terrifying greenish-black eyeballs bulged slightly. They were bloodshot and emitted a sense of fear. What is that? Little Fox shuddered. She felt a chill in the face of the yellow river. If not for the fact that Suzimo and the others were standing in front of her, she would have retreated long ago. That's one of the ancient phenomenons, the Acheron. Suzimo said slowly. In the era of the ancient emperors, the underworld emperor dissipated his soul with unparalleled courage and determination and took a trip to the gates of hell. When he saw the Acheron personally, he was inspired and created the Jindan phenomenon. It's said that there's an extremely powerful dragon vein hidden in the depths of the Acheron. With that, the underworld emperor created a peerless secret classic, the Dragon Quake Sutra, which is also the #1 secret classic for searching for Dragon Dianxue. Qing Qing frowned slightly and murmured with a thoughtful expression, "That fatty looks familiar." The torrential waves affected one's vision. However, after a while, Qing Qing realized that something was amiss. It's little Fatty from Misty Peak, Ching Ching exclaimed. After more than 20 years, little Fatty had matured a lot and his features had changed. However, his silhouette remained the same. That's right, it's him. Su Zimo nodded. The other cultivator is also an old friend. He was originally a cultivator of Southern Mountains sect named Shijian. You guys don't recognize him. The Underworld Emperor left behind his legacy in Tianhuang Mainland Tomb Sect, one of the 5 heretical doctrines. In the elementary ancient battlefield, little Fatty was taken away by someone from Tomb Sect. As for Shijian, he joined Puppet Sect, another one of the 5 major sections. Fatty, I'm sorry for implicating you. Shijian's face was pale and his forehead was covered in sweat. It was clear that his spirit energy was depleted, and he could not continue. Although controlling 5 puppets at the same time was strong in combat, the consumption of his spirit energy increased exponentially as well. What's the point of saying that? Hang in there and don't get distracted. We'll definitely be able to escape. Little Fatty waved his chubby palms and controlled the water of Acheron, creating waves one after another to defend against the attacks of the battle corpses outside. Even though that was the case, little Fatty's Acheron phenomenon was already weakening, and its might was decreasing. It was becoming unstable against the attacks of the battle corpses. Little Fatty defended against the battle corpses outside while saying, "Do you know why I'm asking for your help this time round?" "Why?" Shijian asked. "Are you dumb?" At that moment, little Fatty was still optimistic and chuckled. As the saying goes, fortune favors fools. You're so dumb that you'll definitely have a good life. Who knows, I might be able to benefit from your help. You guys are still in the mood to chat. A corpse refinement cultivator had a cold expression as he slapped his storage bag, scattering a clump of yellow powder onto the battle corpse. Little Fatty sniffed and his expression changed starkly as he exclaimed, "It's berserk corpse powder." Before he finished his sentence, the battle corpses that were tainted with the yellow powder suddenly let out a series of hysterical roars. The battle corpses expanded and their clothes burst apart, revealing their bodies, necks and cheeks with veins that popped out. They were like tiny snakes that slithered on the surface of their skin in a menacing manner. As they roared, the battle corpses' mouths emitted a foul stench and 2 pairs of sharp fangs grew from their upper and lower jaws. They were stained with blood in a chilling manner. Bang! 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 The strength of the battle corpses increased tremendously as though they were in a frenzy. They were fearless of Acheron's power and charged at little Fatty's Jindan phenomenon repeatedly, causing a series of violent explosions. Instantly, Acheron's phenomenon trembled. In fact, Acheron River had even calmed down. Acheron's Jindan was a burial ground for hungry ghosts and the corpses of god fiends. But now, dozens of battle corpses stood within Acheron's Jindan and roared into the skies, as though they were suppressing Acheron with a torrential ferocity. A look of resentment flashed through little Fatty's eyes. If the Underworld Emperor knew that Acheron's phenomenon had been reduced to such a state and was suppressed by the corpses, he would definitely explode. Suddenly a voice sounded. It was neither loud nor soft, but it drowned out the roars of the battle corpses and spread to every single corner of the battlefield. A bunch of evil fiends who can't even see the light of day. How dare you act so brazenly in this ancient battlefield where the blood of emperors was spilled? When he heard that voice, little Fatty shuddered and his bean-sized eyes widened in disbelief. Shijian panted heavily, but he had a suspicious expression as well. This voice sounded somewhat familiar. "It's Boss!" Little Fatty exclaimed. "Boss?" Shijian froze for a moment before asking, "Brother Su of Misty Peak?" "There's no mistake." Little Fatty propped up Acheron's phenomenon and leaped up, looking outside with all his might. He waved excitedly and shouted, "Boss, I'm here. Hurry and save me." Chapter 679. Corpse Refinement Cult is doing something here. Which blind fool is that? The leader of the Corpse Refinement Cult cultivators glared at Su Zimo's group with widened eyes that resembled a dead fish. His voice was sinister and his face was filled with killing intent. Another person said coldly, "You beasts had better scram far away. Otherwise, he with the supreme secret skills of corpse refinement cult, I can refine you guys into battle corpses with ease and make you suffer a fate worse than death. Is that so? Su Zimo raised his brows slightly. Without any visible movements, he moved like an arrow and charged into the crowd of corpse refinement cult cultivators in the blink of an eye. He was way too fast. The distance between the two parties was not far to begin with. Su Zimo's inner core and Jin Dan were already at perfected state. Circulating both cores at the same time, he channeled his demonic and spirit energy at the same time, coupled with his power of blood chi. Even pure-blooded ferocious beasts with sharp senses and strong physiques would not be able to react to such a burst, let alone the corpse refinement cult cultivators. Poof! 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 There were no moves or spirit arts. He was just charging forward with his body alone. Right in front of everyone, the corpse refinement cult cultivators in front of Su Zimo were like gigantic watermelons that were smashed into pieces, leaving behind blood mists. He was a lethal weapon in the human world. He crushed his way through the crowd and no one could withstand his sharpness. 7 corpse refinement cult cultivators were still sneering a moment ago. The next moment, they were smashed to death without any corpse left. A corpse refinement cult cultivator reacted and instinctively placed his Chaos Essence Iron Rod in front of him. Unexpectedly, a black shadow charged over. Snap! The iron rod in his hands was snapped into 2. The broken part was as sharp as a spear, piercing into his chest and directly penetrating through. Another corpse refinement cult cultivator hollered, and withdrew a shimmering silver shield from his storage bag, injecting spirit energy furiously. Instantly a bright light shone brightly. The shield expanded against the wind like a silver mountain, protecting that person firmly behind it. It shone with 5 bedazzling spirit lights. A perfect grade defensive spirit artifact. If a perfect spirit weapon was placed in the cultivation world of the Great Zhou dynasty, it would definitely cause quite a stir. However, Su Zimo's expression did not change. There was not even the slightest fluctuation in his eyes. He had seen too many of these weapons. Right now, he had dozens of perfect-grade spirit weapons in his storage bag alone. Su Zimo's speed did not change. His eyes were cold and indifferent. He leaped up slightly and took a step forward, stomping heavily on the huge silver shield. Plow heaven stride. A monstrous aura burst forth from Su Zimo's body. Even the sky would be left with a huge ravine under his feet, let alone a mountain in front of him. Rumble! Su Zimo stomped on the shining silver shield beneath his feet. The corpse refinement cult cultivator hiding behind the shield did not make a single sound before he was stomped into a pile of flesh by Su Zimo through the shield without a corpse. Su Zimo was getting increasingly familiar with the many killing moves of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. As his cultivation of the demonic Tao deepened, the power of those killing moves turned increasingly terrifying as well. The crowd was in an uproar. Not far away, there were many cultivators who were about to join the battle. When they saw that, they stopped in their tracks instinctively and were dumbfounded with shocked expressions. It was way too ferocious. In the blink of an eye, 9 corpse refinement cult cultivators died in the hands of that green-robed cultivator. The most frightening thing was that the 9 of them could not fight back at all against the green-robed cultivator. Who is that person? What's his background? I don't know. The ancient battlefield is way too scary. Indeed, paragons roam freely with monster incarnates everywhere. That's right. Notwithstanding the legacy disciples of the super sex, I heard that there's another monster incarnate that's extremely rare in the North region. I know that person as well. It's said that he has a feud with Glass Palace. After entering this place, he massacred the tens of thousands of cultivators at the Glass Palace gathering point. So ruthless. There was a hubbub of voices as people discussed spiritedly. On the battlefield, the remaining corpse refinement cult cultivators were shocked and retreated hurriedly, manipulating their battle corpses not far away to turn around. Almost all of the capabilities of the corpse refinement cult cultivators came from their battle corpses. Without the protection of their battle corpses, their bodies were weak and their strength was not much different from ordinary cultivators. The leader of the corpse refinement cult cultivator said coldly with a cold expression, "You're truly courting death. Our corpse refinement cult disciples are constantly accompanied by corpses and are tainted with corpse poison. You won't be able to escape death by smashing their bodies. That's right. Another corpse refinement cult cultivator sneered. Be ****. Can you feel that your blood chi is starting to weaken? Hee hee. Ha 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 ha. Su Zimo reared his head in laughter. His voice was bright and resounding as his blood chi surged with the sound of a tsunami. There were no signs of being poisoned in his current state. His bloodline was like a blazing furnace. It incinerated, vaporized, and purified everything. Even the lethal poison of poison sect might not be able to pose any threat to him, let alone corpse poison. The faces of the corpse refinement cult cultivators turned even paler. A tall and mighty figure charged forward and swung his fists like a pair of gigantic hammers into the crowd, barging left and right. There was no way the corpse refinement cult cultivators could defend against Monkey's iron fists. One after another, figures were sent flying. By the time they landed on the ground, they were already lifeless corpses. An evil gust of wind blew. A white-browed tiger emitted a rumbling malevolent aura as though it was starving. It lunged down from the mountain and tore apart the body of a corpse refinement cult cultivator, ripping his stomach apart. The moment the corpse poison on the corpses made contact with the Linghu's fur, a bolt of lightning flashed and turned the corpse poison into nothingness. Roar! A majestic golden lion barged into the crowd and let out a deafening roar. The corpse refinement cult cultivators closest to it froze as blood seeped out from the corners of their eyes, nostrils, ears, and mouths. They were bleeding from all 7 orifices. The brains of these cultivators had already been shaken into paste. Ching Ching and Little Fox did not head forward. Of course, they would stay far away from these sinister cultivators who reeked of rotting death. Even so, it took less than 10 breaths for Su Zimo, Monkey, the Linghu and the Golden Lion to kill the dozens of corpse refinement cult cultivators. The dozens of battle corpses that surrounded Little Fatty and Shijian earlier on did not even have the time to save them before everything was over. In reality, corpse refinement cult cultivators were rather troublesome existences in the cultivation world. Unless absolutely necessary, disciples of many super sects would not want to provoke them. The battle corpses they refined were invulnerable to weapons, fire, and water. Furthermore, they were extremely strong and could fight against perfect or even connate spirit weapons. With the battle corpses at the front, the corpse refinement cult cultivators were almost invincible. However, the weakness of the corpse refinement cult cultivators was rather obvious as well. The moment they died, the battle corpses would lose control and pose no threat. Su Zimo and the others seized on that weakness and did not give the corpse refinement cult cultivators any chance to catch their breaths. With a thunderous momentum, they suppressed them within a dozen breaths. The dozens of battle corpses collapsed stiffly and turned into true corpses. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.